Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 45 of the Drew Pavlu Show. It's a very big show today. We've got a great guest from America. His name is Corey Walker. Viet Tran says, "What the fuck, so early?" Listen, Viet Walker, we're trying to stream for our North American friends right now. That's why we're starting a bit earlier today. I know it's hard for us people in the Pacific time zones, Vietnam. It must be about 9 a.m. and it's about 10:40 a.m. for me. But it's evening. It's evening in America right now, and before we get into today's stream, I have very disturbing news that I have to discuss, and that would be, for example, relating to Glenn Greenwald. That's a very disturbing thing. Drew, I should be your manager. I put you and Angelica together for a live stream. Yeah, easy money. You know what? Easy money. You can be a manager of the show. Thank you so much. Did Angelica say when she wants to join the live stream? Max says, "Good day, Kings." Oh, Vietran says, "I got to go to work, sadly." Have fun, guys. You know what, Vietran? I'll also try to stream this evening for our Australian friends as well. And by the way, guys, I've started streaming on Kick as well. It's multi-streaming to Kick. I've put the Kick link in the comments right now. Angelica said next week. That will be powerful. That will be powerful. Max says he's working and watching. Oh, mate, working hard or hardly working. You know how it is. I am live streaming on Kick for the first time. And let me just quickly, I'll send out the link, guys, and then I'm going to send Corey Walker the link to join the stream, and we're going to have a discussion. It'll be very interesting. It's Max is working from home today. That's a very powerful thing, Max. I support you on that. Working from home is a very beautiful and powerful thing. In a way, you could say that I'm working from home right now. Not many people would say that, but I reckon you could make the argument. You could make the argument. I'm just going to quickly share the. I'm going to quickly share the stream link to my Discord and my Twitter community, guys, and then we'll get into it, and I'll bring Corey onto the show. 1 second. I believe we've got 10 watching live on YouTube. It's a lot more on Twitter. I think 200 on Twitter. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please leave a like. If you can leave a like, that would be very much appreciated, because then it will boost our audience. YouTube will recommend us to more people. Glenn Greenwald is disgusting. I agree. Nipples protruding on the timeline. It was very disgusting. Very disgusting. Drew, you are my favorite alpha male and heterosexual. Thank you so much. A lot of people have said that. I really thank you for that. And I actually agree. I actually agree with you there. I am a heterosexual and I am an alpha male. So thank you so much. And I will just quickly... What was the other link I have to share? Oh, yeah, in the Discord. What was Glenn Greenwald doing? So the Hamas supporter and Putin supporter Glenn Greenwald filmed a video of himself licking a bloke's feet, and he put it on YouTube, on his Twitter, and it was very, very disturbing. Very disturbing. I don't think he should put it on Twitter. If he wants to do it, that's his business. But it's very disturbing that he did this on his Twitter, where so many innocent people follow him, and were exposed to this. It was very disturbing. 1 second, guys. Just going to send out one more link, and then... Episode 45 of the Drew Pavlu Show. It's very powerful, very powerful. Do you think the Chinese invasion of Taiwan deserves the destruction of the Three Gorge Dam? Look, it's deterrence. If they want to invade anybody, if anyone wants to invade Taiwan or Australia, you have deterrence. You deter the invasion by simply bringing up the existence of the third world, the Three Gorges Dam. This is interesting. I'm a big MAGA libertarian guy in America and a huge fan of you and your politics. I'd take your brand of pro-Western liberalism over MAGA. See, my friends, it's actually working. We're trying to bring people back from MAGA. We're pro-West. See, they like pro-West liberalism. This is a great question by Yusuf, my friend. He says, was Glenn Greenwald on crack when he filmed himself licking a feet and licking someone's feet and putting it on Twitter? Maybe he wasn't on crack. It was very disturbing. Hello, Steve. Good day, Champion Drew. What's this new time? So I'm thinking to maybe do a live stream in the morning Australia time so that we can reach our North American friends. So we've got someone, for example, Western Hegemony and Joy is very happy. He says finally. See, so there are people in North America who'd like to. There are some people in North America who are happy that we're streaming at this time. And then I think I will also stream in the evening as well, most likely on meth. Yes, I think so. Skonta, hello, Dad. How are you going? Hi, Drew. I'm currently crashing out over One Nation doubling their Senate seats. I thought they went from 2 to 3. Did they get to 4? Give the like button a tickle. Very well said, Steve. Andrew Landew says this: I'm working, but take brief industrial action to pause and express my disgust for Glenn Greenwald. Has Bad Empanada inspired such depravity? It's very disturbing. Maybe it's something to do with, these white blokes who moved to Latin America. Maybe they're doing it for disturbing and perverse sexual reasons. It's very disturbing. What the hell? One Nation won New South Wales seat 6. They actually boosted themselves. What the hell? That's crazy. I'm actually shocked by that. So One Nation have 4 Senate seats in Australia now. That's actually quite shocking. Glenn Greenwald kind of base. What the hell? No, he's not. Whose feet was Glenn licking? I believe Glenn was licking a Brazilian bloke's feet, and it was very disturbing. Clipped and shipped. Glenn needs to get the fuck out of Brazil. Tell his CIA handlers to take him back. I don't think he has CIA handlers. I mean, he's actually quite anti-West, if you think about it. So he's very anti-West. He hates America. So I don't know. I would say it's probably more likely his KGB handlers. And I would agree with you. The KGB handlers need to remove Glenn from Brazil. It's very disturbing. This bloke is a very disturbing bloke. And honestly, I think it's quite similar probably to the Nazis who moved themselves to Argentina after the war. So Glenn Greenwald, very disturbing bloke. We know he's a communist. We know he's a tanky, and he loves Russia, and he loves China, and he loves Hamas. And so it's really no surprise that he would also put this disturbing imagery on everyone's feeds. Say something you like about MAGA, then say something you don't like. Look, I have to say, I think Trump is objectively funny. Unluckily, it's very sad that Trump is a funny bloke. But I don't like the destruction of American institutions and democracy and all this sort of stuff. Guys, by the way, I am streaming on Kick for the first time as well. I'll put that link up. It's in the comments if you want to watch it. Otherwise, if you're watching on Twitter, potentially go through to my YouTube or the Kick. We're trying to build it up. Okay, I will now send the link to Corey Walker. Hang on one second. Yusuf says this: he was licking another bloke's feet. As someone with a foot fetish, I'm grossed out by him doing that and putting that imagery out in public. What the fuck? Very powerful, very powerful words, Yusuf. If he wants to do it, that's his right. But please just don't put it on our Twitter. Please don't put it on our Twitter. Okay, I'm going to quickly. How do I send the link? One second. I'm sending the link to Corey. Corey will be joining us in a second. Very disturbing. Glenn Greenwald. There's a video of it. It was extremely disturbing. He filmed himself licking somebody's spit off the floor. Extremely disturbing. By the way, look at the New South Wales Senate results. One Nation won this Senate seat from the Nationals law, so not much has changed really. It's really interesting. I'm actually pretty surprised that they won another Senate seat. I don't know where that came from. They didn't win that many votes in One Nation. Sorry, I don't think they won many votes in Western Australia or New South Wales. So it's pretty weird actually. Gee, it is pretty weird actually. They actually went from 2 to 4 seats. Well, you know what? At least. You know what's funny? Probably both of them are going to defect. Probably both of them are going to defect very shortly. So it's very weird that they won 2 extra Senate seats. Where did that come from? Oh, Corey's here. Corey, I'm going to bring you on. Psephologists are saying they got strong preference flows from the big joint ticket and other minor right parties. Very sad, very sad. I'll bring on Corey. Hello, Corey. How you going?
Hey,
Hey, man.
thanks for
Thank you
having
for
me.
joining. No,
Yeah,
thank you for
thanks.
joining. I'm very happy to have you on the show. I apologize that we are basically starting like 50 minutes late, which is my fault. I very much apologize for that. Thank you for joining. Corey,
No problem.
would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers? Give a little bit of background about yourself. You're a Washington correspondent for Al Jamaina, which is a great and big media company that focuses on the Middle East.
Yeah, so I write for the Allgemeiner, and it's a Jewish outlet. So like we write about the Middle East, usually Israel, but not just exclusively Israel. We write about Iran, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, basically everything going on over there. Qatar is a huge issue.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's mostly a domestic company. Like they're headquartered in New York. I actually live in Washington, D.C. So I cover most of the issues that pertain to Middle East, insofar as they affect, insofar as they are involved with American domestic policy, our foreign policy, rather. And yeah, and so that's basically what I do. We're headquartered in New York. I stay in DC. I do a lot of interviews with different policymakers, lawmakers in the United States, and it's been really fun. I think that it's something that I do care about and I do have an interest in. It's been kind of interesting to see how people have responded to, you know, my, my job and what I do, and also my perspective. It's been really fascinating
No,
over the
I do
past
really
year I've been
like it.
doing it. Yeah.
I really like your Twitter actually, and you previously worked, I think, for the Daily Caller. So you've been doing journalism for a couple years now.
Oh yeah. So prior to Allgemeine, I wrote for the Daily Caller, and over there I was doing not really foreign policy things, very occasionally, but very sparsely. It was mostly domestic stuff. So it was mostly like culture war things, like in America. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but over here it's like we have some crazy culture war stuff going on if
Oh,
you
we get
follow
them
our
too.
politics.
No, we
So
certainly get them too.
yeah, I was writing about like trans issues every day. It was interesting, but I'm glad that I'm talking about more substantive things. It feels much more intellectually stimulating to talk about foreign policy than just like, Dylan Mulvaney or whatever.
Oh no, I get you. And listen, like my big passion is definitely in foreign policy. We'll go through like some of these insane fucking Hasan tweets and everything. I was gonna
Okay.
say to you, Corey, we can give it a pause for a minute or two. Do you want to share the link out to your followers and stuff like that? Because it would be great to have some more people join us.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. Of course.
Yeah, no, of course. I think I'm gonna retweet the link and everything and try get some more people to join us. By the
Sure.
way, are you familiar with what Glenn Greenwald did this morning?
I think I've heard like some rumors that there was like there's like a tape of him going around licking someone's feet or like
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
skirt or something. I haven't seen it. I don't want to see it, but like
yeah,
I've
yeah.
heard of the rumors floating around.
Yes. No, so because he's like a massive Israel critic, and he's pretty much borderline a tanky. Like he's pretty pro Russia, hates Ukraine, and all this stuff. And then
Yeah.
this morning he shared to his like 2 million followers on Twitter like a porno video of himself. And it's just like, dude, why are you doing that? Like, I don't want to watch Glenn Greenwald. So it's quite disturbing, quite disturbing. We've got some funny comments. I see. No, it's very sad. It's very scary. Yes. Oh, very bad, very bad. We've got
Awesome.
okay. We've got to just. I want to see this. Hassanabi, he's going literally full Hamas now. There's no comparison between Israel and Hamas. One is a militant resistance comprised of orphaned soldiers. So true. Brought into a 77-year-old occupation. The other is the ethno-religious supremacist apartheid state with nukes doing a genocide backed by the USA. Amazing. Like literally saying that every Hamas fighter is an orphaned soldier. Just fully supporting Hamas, fully supporting their goals of ethnically cleansing Jews. Just also neglecting to mention that Hamas is an ethno-religious supremacist organization. Like if they were to win, they would literally kill probably 1 million Jews and literally purge millions of Jews from the Middle East.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on this, Corey? It's quite an amazing commentary by Hasan. I think he's really going full mask off now. I honestly, I reckon I almost think maybe he's trying to bait the Trump administration into going after him or whatever because he thinks he'll get more views.
I kind of feel like at this point, I feel so like jaded by everything he says because like he's gone so extreme, and I feel like
Yeah.
his thing is like he's trying to pander to like these very like extremely far left tankies, and that's a
Yeah.
group that's like they do relentless purity testing, and
Yeah.
Israel is like the one issue that is like their do or die issue. Like that's the one that you can't even be somewhat off step with them on. And so he's kind of trying to
Yes.
establish himself as the most radical anti-Israel person in like
Yeah.
all the
Absolutely.
internet. So that's why he's
Exactly.
taking these extreme pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist, position. That's what he is. Like, it's not just Hamas. He supports the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. He supports Hezbollah. He's called them resistance organizations. He supports the
Yeah.
Houthis. He's also said that America deserved 9/11. So
Yes.
it's not that shocking that he's doing this. I feel like he's doing this every day at this point. I feel like he has to say this stuff in order to keep his fans, supporting him. And
Yes.
it's
I
kind of
agree with
wild.
you.
But you can support the Palestinians without supporting terrorism. And I think that if you support Hamas, you don't support the Palestinians. Because Hamas slaughters Palestinians. Hamas, if
Yeah.
you speak out against them, like they will end your life over in Gaza.
And we've seen that. We've actually seen them doing that this week. Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure just literally days ago they executed dozens. Like I'm not sure the exact number, but they executed at least they executed multiple Palestinian civilians, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just incredible that like he's literally supporting Hamas right there on the timeline.
Right.
And yeah, it's definitely a whole it's a purity test thing. I think you're absolutely right with that.
Mm-hmm. But it's also, he says, resisting what exactly? Because Hamas, like I said, they steal aid from that goes into Gaza. They tax
Yes.
that and they use that to pay their fighters. Hamas openly does things like, they do use human shields. They burrow tunnels underneath schools and hospitals. Those things are not particularly resistant as far as I know. And so I really think that he I think he knows what he's doing is wrong. I think what he knows he's saying is insane. But I think the one thing about the Tinky worldview is that they're just anti-Western. So, like, if you're against
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
West, to them, you're good. So anything Hamas
Absolutely.
does can be justified. Nothing Israel does can ever be justified. And I think that's basically his worldview, and it's reflective in all of his commentary, which is wild. I think it's scary because, like I said, he's very popular, and he's not a fringe person at all. Like, if you look at like mainstream Democratic, politicians like AOC, Bernie Sanders, they've been on his show.
Yeah.
He's been interviewed by Pod Save America, which is like probably the most
Yeah.
popular kind of mainstream Democratic podcast out there. It's run by
Absolutely.
former Obama speechwriters. They've praised him, and
Absolutely.
I think that this sort of pro-terror sentiment is extremely scary, and it's becoming mainstream because of people like him.
Yes. No, absolutely. It is actually extremely disturbing. And you're completely right. Like, man, he's literally on Pod Save America, which is like one of the biggest Democratic platforms run by literally former top Obama aides.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's like Bernie Sanders and AOC are willing to sit down with him. I mean, AOC's literally been on his show before. Bernie's been on his
Oh
show.
yeah.
So for him now to like be fully embracing Hamas is quite significant. And you know what? I think he actually has become more extreme. Like I don't think he was this bad like a year ago even, or even 2
Oh
years ago.
no.
Like I think he was just kind of like a more standard generic Bernie Sanders type social democrat maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And he's really, I mean, with some spotty opinions, of course. I mean, he did say that crazy 9/11 thing, but I think he's now fully radicalized anti-West. And it's just also ironic because, I mean, you would know this as a reporter on the Middle East. I mean, he does not bring this kind of level of rage and fury whatsoever to the actions of, say, like the Turkish government in Syria towards Kurdish Syrians and stuff like that.
Right.
Like he doesn't seem to care much about ethnic cleansing when it's Turkey doing it or other Muslim states doing it. it's just this sort of passion project for him when it's against Jews. I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, like if you see, for example, how he's defended what Russia is doing to Ukraine, how he is defended what China is doing to the Uyghur
Yeah.
Muslim population, I think that it's like very clear that for him, it's a status-seeking game. He's looking for clout, and it's like I said, I'll keep going. Like it's anti-Western. Like for example, if it's two countries that are not a part of, are not less necessarily caught in the fury or the ire of the global or the global left. He probably doesn't have much to say about it or doesn't care. I think he explicitly said, I think he said recently on, what was it, the Adam Friedland show, that like he doesn't take a side between Russia and Ukraine. He just doesn't care how that turns out.
About it.
And like, look, and actually, I'll say that's an improvement, because prior to this, like he was openly supporting Russia. So at least saying like I'm neutral, that's better, I guess, compared to where he was.
No, I mean, it's just amazing. And he was one of those guys that prior to the Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, he was saying, there's no way it's going to happen. There's no way it's going to ever happen. And then, just literally no reflection whatsoever when it did happen. It's just this obsessive hatred with the West. What do you think drives this obsessive hatred for the West, Corey? I mean, it's interesting because, like, it's funny. I think a lot of it is like white kids at the universities. It's like quite a privileged sort of position. And I'm also interested, Corey. Like, you're an African American man. Like, have you felt like you've been particularly viciously attacked by tankies and stuff like that because they see you as a kind of like race traitor because you're not like necessarily like an anti-West Africa? I see that sort of dynamic play out quite a lot. Like if it's somebody who, is not white, but they have a more nuanced opinion on like, geopolitics and foreign policy than just, like full Hamas race war stuff, they will particularly target these people with like absolutely vicious slander. So I'm interested in that, Corey.
Well, there's multiple questions there. To answer your first question, I think that the anti-Western sentiment probably stems from just being performative. I think that, first off, I think a lot of people who speak about these things don't really have much depth or knowledge about them. They're just trying to gain like popularity. And that's basically like all they're trying to do. And that's really what they care about, right? Like, if you look at, for example, a lot of these college campuses, like in America, where people will straight up say, like, oh, like Israel is doing genocide, they support Hamas, long live the resistance, whatever. When you actually like talk to these kids for like 5 minutes on this issue, it becomes extremely clear that they don't know anything about this stuff. It's just like they've been fed like maybe 2 or 3 lines, and they just keep regurgitating those lines. But since they're in these environments where, quite frankly, they're rewarded socially for having the right opinion, it creates a positive feedback loop, and there's some positive incentive to just, regurgitate the same opinions everyone else has. There's nothing brave about being anti-Western, hating Israel, hating the United States on an American college campus. If anything, that's expected, right? That's how you get social currency. And that's basically where I think it's coming from. I think that there's an incentive to do so. I also think that beyond that, if you look at our institutions in the West, in the United States particularly, I would say Australia is similar. There's been a lot of money funneled into there by Qatar. And Qatar has basically, incentivized, especially our most elite institutions like Columbia University, Harvard, Duke, where we have entire schools that are literally funded by Qatar. They have like scholars that they're paying their salaries, that the money is coming directly from Qatar. And they're setting up these Islamic centers, Palestine study centers, essentially importing in activists that are basically pretending to be academics on our campuses. And they're basically whipping kids into a frenzy, telling them that this is like the new Jim Crow, this is the new apartheid South Africa. And so you have to be if you want to be on the right side of history, you have to basically support an Islamist terrorist organization, right? And so that's basically what I think we've seen. We've seen our institutions over the course of probably more than a decade at this point be radicalized and pushed towards these extreme anti-Western ideologies and sentiments, where we've basically been taught that we are, what's wrong with the world, that the West, because of slavery, because of Jim Crow, because of colonialism, all of the sins
Absolutely.
that we are responsible for, then we are basically forever,
Forever
tainted.
tainted. Yeah.
Yeah, and that we deserve, that we're forever bad. Anyone associated with us is bad. And I just listen. We have issues, right? Like, I mean, obviously, the West has done bad things.
Yeah.
I am black,
Of
obviously.
course.
I am the living,
Yeah.
embodiments of the sins, unfortunately, that America had perpetrated. With that said, it's also important to look in context. Like, we've made horrible mistakes as a society, but like you could say that about the global South, which I mean is not by any means a sort of like paragon of like moral virtue. And so
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that
That's what I
when
take issue with.
yeah, and I think
Like the
that
the idea that it's just like perfect, you know?
and for the mistakes that we've made as a society, and the mistakes that we've made, it, I do think America is a place where we're trying to constantly improve and progress and get better. And I think that obviously it's a rocky road to get there, but we're trying to improve. You can't really say that about a lot of the world. Quite frankly, you can't really say about the Middle East. You can't say that about the countries that in the global South that
Yeah.
the left puts on the pedestal. So, I mean, I think that's part of it. It's just like guilt, like historical guilt
Yeah,
that we're playing
massively.
out. But to answer your second question about me on a personal level, yeah, I get lots of hate from the left because I'm
Yeah,
black and because of the views I have. And so I've been called every slur in the book, the N word,
absolutely.
monkey. And usually it's
Yeah.
by people who have like a Palestine flag in their bio. I've literally
Yeah.
been told, stop worrying about Palestine, go find your father. You
Holy shit, man.
are, yeah, like I've been, called every horrible. So, I mean, they make memes of me, um, being hung by a tree. I've had memes be
Oh,
made of
dude.
me showing me depicted as like a dog with a dog collar around my neck, being walked by like this caricature of a Jewish person.
And
Um,
who do you think particularly is behind those kinds of memes? Like, is it like white leftists, or is it like maybe like it's like Arab Islamists, or like who's actually making those particularly extremist memes and psycho memes?
Well, it's always behind someone that does not have a profile picture. It's like someone's like a
Yeah,
anime profile picture, you know. And so I can't say for sure, but my guess is knowing how this thing works. I wouldn't be shocked if it's mostly just like Islamist extremists, either domestically in the
yeah.
United States or maybe overseas, maybe
I've
in
seen a lot
Europe.
of it come from Islamists. I've seen a lot
Yeah,
of it come.
because like anti-black racism is massive in Islamic countries. It's
Yeah, dude, it
massive
is.
in Islamic communities, and so like it wouldn't shock me if, I mean, it doesn't shock me that like they feel comfortable just calling me racial slurs because they do that to black people that live in Arab countries, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
absolutely,
they
dude.
feel comfortable saying these things about me, saying I've been told that like I'm tap dancing for Jewish shekels and all types of things. I don't know. I would say like in terms of the stuff from like white leftists, I've been told that like I'm a CIA agent, so like
Yeah.
that's like another thing. I'm not a real person. People don't think that I'm real on the internet, which is funny. Like they'll be like, "Oh, this is like
I'm
not.
literally
This is like
streaming
a."
right now.
They say like I'm like a 50-year-old white CIA agent using like a black profile picture to like launder like Israel's reputation or something.
Extremely true, yeah.
Um, yeah, and they'll say like, "Oh, he's like I mean, what the things that get told by me by white leftists are like, I'm being paid to launder genocidal propaganda or peddle that. I think someone told me that like I'd get paid like $3,000 a year to like regurgitate Israeli propaganda, or I'm being paid by the Mossad, or that it like there's more conspiratorial things when it comes from white people because they don't think that someone who looks like me should be able to have my opinions. But when it comes to like
Yeah,
from
absolutely.
Islamists, it's just like straight up like scorched earth, like 1955 level racism.
Oh, dude, yeah. I've seen like actual ISIS accounts on Twitter at the moment, like hardcore ISIS Islamist accounts. I think the Western hegemony enjoyer guy is taking the piss here, but he says Mossad is coming your way, Corey. But I've seen like legitimate like ISIS accounts on Twitter now. And some of them will be like insanely racist. Like, yeah, as you say, like they will literally have shit posts, like memes showing black people being hung and all this sorts of stuff. And they will they'll put slurs everywhere. And it's actually amazing. Like, I would actually say that like Elon lifting the censorship on Twitter exposed me to how terrible Islamist supremacism is, because I saw all their tweets that I previously did not see, like all these ISIS guys' tweets. And I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are actually like full-blown fascists, basically. The way I kind of see it, I look at fascism as basically just like, far-right reaction against modernity. And I think any culture can basically produce its own variant of fascism. Like, fascinatingly, there's literally like an indigenous fascist group in Peru right now that's running for elections. And look, I think every single culture can produce something like this. And I think Islamism is probably like, like the sort of like right-wing Islamist fundamentalist type. It's almost like they're like a far-right reaction to modernity. It's like I feel it's almost like the Islamic world's reaction to modernity. It's like basically a form of fascism, a variant of fascism from within that culture. And I see that just like in the way that they're just so blatantly supremacist on Twitter. Like, I'll show you this guy. What was his name? I had a big discussion with him yesterday where because my family background's like Greek Cypriot, right? And he was just like mocking that, and he was going like haha, like we like so this was his meme. Like, it's he was like talking, he was like laughing about how like Westerners cry over the conquest of Constantinople or whatever, and I just responded by saying like, yeah, like how does that apply to like the Israeli victory in 1967 then, if you want to just play a game where conquering is like whatever automatically gives you legitimacy? And then he goes like, apply this to the hundreds of years the Muslims ruled Cyprus. And I got all these comments from like, yeah, his fans just like fully psycho shit going like, haha, you're Turkish, you've got like as you can see, like they put the Turkish Northern Cyprus flag up, apply this to the Turkish victory in Cyprus. Hey Drew, can you tell us exactly what happened to your Cypriot family in 1974?
Oh my god.
Dude, like here's legitimately an example. Like, fucking like these are Islamist accounts, and you can literally see this right now. Like they're Hitler supporters. Like holy shit, dude. Like, it's just you can see this stuff. So it's right there, and I'd actually have to say that like it probably actually makes me more aware of how psychotic the Islamist supremacists are, and like just aware of the Democrats have a secret weapon to win back then. I don't think that's going to be very successful.
I don't either.
We should talk about the Democrats a bit, and I'd be very interested in your thoughts on Zohran, the guy who's running in this is such a good one. I thought it was amazing. Let's talk about a bit about Zohran, because
okay.
I think it's not exactly smart policy, but yeah.
Yeah, so Zohran Mamdani is a democratic socialist who is running for mayor of New York City. He's actually made quite a bit of inroads in terms of polling, so he's polling better than he was like a month ago. And so
he's within striking distance, right?
Yeah, he's projected to be, as of right now, second place to Andrew Cuomo, who is the former governor of New York City, and he's like closing the gap. So like it's getting more narrow.
Within striking distance.
Yeah, it's probably like within 8 or 9 points. So like it's not like it's super close, but it's rather, he has momentum, and it's in the last month until the election. So like it's getting close. And basically he is a part of DSA, which is like a very left-wing, radical left organization.
Yes.
He's made, things like rent freezes. Basically his policy for homeless people is to put them in the subway and put them in like vacant he says there's a lot. He says there's a lot of vacant retail stores in New York City subway, and so he says he wants to convert those or retrofit those into becoming basically like homeless shelters, and so he'll put the homeless people in the subway.
And make them a subterranean subclass.
Yeah, And from what I understand, he's also like a prison abolitionist. So like that's going to be
Amazing,
interesting,
amazing.
given the fact that crime, obviously in a big city, is a huge issue.
And it's
Um,
killing the Democrats, massively killing the Democrats.
yeah, and he's also made like foreign policy for some. Even though he's like the mayor, wants to be the mayor, he's making foreign policy like a big issue. So he
Yeah,
said that he
he's
would
very
like
powerful.
he would arrest, you know, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he were to come visit New York.
Can
And
he even do
he's,
that? Can he even do that as the mayor?
I think he probably could like order NYPD to arrest him if he landed in New York City.
Wow.
I would imagine that like that would cause like a huge international crisis, and whoever the president of the United States is probably would tell him to like not do that, or probably try to
Yeah.
intervene somehow. I'd imagine that would be like a huge international crisis that he probably doesn't want to step in. But that's what he's
The funny
promising to
thing is,
do.
I was gonna say like, a lot of the time when you get these like sort of like leftist city council candidates and they're talking about like arresting like Israeli leaders if they come to their city, like normally it's
Yeah,
just a joke because it's like, because I remember like the San Francisco Board of Supervisors had like a big vote on like Israel. It's like, yeah, what the fuck are they gonna do? But like New York City is literally home to the United Nations, so that's a whole
yeah,
different thing entirely.
hmm
Like he actually, I mean, that actually has quite significant implications if he were to actually do that.
yeah,
So yeah. I mean, it's interesting. That would probably cause like a massive crisis. And it's interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, he literally is within striking distance right now.
yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. You go back
No.
on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So last thing I was going to say is like he kind of went viral maybe like 2 days ago because one, he wouldn't acknowledge Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, and then I think maybe a day or two after that, he visited a mosque in New York City,
Yes, I
and
saw that.
and
It had
he
takfir.
basically, yeah, he basically said that Israel's pager operation in Lebanon against Hezbollah was a terrorist attack. He didn't basically say it, he actually did say that. He called it a terrorist attack.
Amazing.
And yeah, which is kind of wild to me because apparently the airstrikes in Gaza, because of the amount of civilian casualties, that's
In
supposedly a
30,
genocide. The
Let's watch it back. Let's watch
patriot
it on
attack
the
is
stream.
terrorism. Yeah,
I'll put this up.
in
I'll
32
shut up.
days, we have an opportunity to prove that Muslims don't just belong in New York City, we also belong in City Hall. And I ask for your help in telling every
I'm not
person
sure
in
this is
your
the
life, every person in our community, and every New York.
I'm not sure this is the one where he's talking about the Hezbollah stuff. Interesting. I'm going to retweet that. That's fascinating. So Zohran Hezbollah, the pages. Yeah, I remember seeing that. Where's this pager one? He's
New York City,
okay. This is
our mayor
interesting.
has been indicted by the feds on corruption charges. Yet we also know that a far greater criminal is in our city today, and that is the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Wow.
I'm here at a protest right now because of the fact that a genocide is continuing to take place in Palestine, and Israeli bombing has already expanded into Beirut and to other parts of Lebanon. We know that these horrific war crimes are not just ones that we are witnesses to, but they are ones that we are facilitating and we are.
It's pretty, I think this is potentially the part where this is the full 4-minute speech.
And I want those words.
Do you know when in the speech he mentions the pages?
Ooh, it's like pretty early. It's
A
pretty
dream
early.
that says, raise your hand if you were born outside.
Maybe I'll put it on.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Beautiful.
My name is Zohran Mamdani. It's great to be here with the brothers and the sisters of this masjid. And I'm the first Muslim elected official to ever run for mayor in the history of our city.
Akbir.
And then before I begin, I want to ask everyone here a question, which is if you can raise your hand if you were born outside of this country. Many, most. As was said by the brother here, I was born in Kampala, Uganda.
Oh, yeah, I think his family were purged from Uganda during the Idi Amin administration.
Yeah, I mean,
like
did they go back after? Because I know like Indians were allowed to return after the Ugandan economy collapsed. I don't know if they went back, but
that must be an interesting one for Zohran because Idi Amin would have kicked his family out because they were Indian, but at the same time, Idi Amin was trying to kill, execute one of the Israeli hostages that was taken on the flight to Kampala by the Palestinian extremists. Remember, Operation Entebbe. So it must be very complex for Zohran Someone said his family must have been killed in the Entebbe raid. Oh, very, very disturbing. But yeah, don't you think it must be very complex for him? Because like on one hand, like Idi Amin has purged his family, but at the same time though, Idi Amin was the great, African dictator against Israel and helped bring the Israeli hostages to Uganda. So that must be very difficult for poor Zohran. I was just going to say, by the way, guys, we've got 23 live viewers on YouTube and we've got dozens more on Twitter. Guys, if you're watching on the YouTube, please leave a like. It will help YouTube boost the stream and the algorithm. We'll get more people watching, so please leave a like. But yes, let's
this city at the age of 7. And I know that the brothers and the sisters of this masjid are like New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. Came to this city with a dream of what life would be like. A dream that sustained you on what was often a difficult journey. And yet it is hard to remember that dream when you have to spend each and every day worrying if you have enough money to pay your rent, to pay your mortgage bill, to pay your Con Edison or your water bill, your childcare or your groceries, or even your Metro card. And I think about the words of Prophet Muhammad.
Someone says we've got 1,500 people here on Twitter. Yeah, look, it's cumulative. So unfortunately, it's not 1,000 people watching live. I wish it was. It's 1,500 people have clicked on the stream in total. I think we've got about 30 or 40 watching live on Twitter. If you're watching live on Twitter, guys, go to the YouTube. It's down in the description. I put the tweet link below, and leave a like on the YouTube video. That's where we're really trying to build it up.
Who instructed us to make things easier. Do not make them.
I think it's pretty sectarian politics.
More difficult. Spread glad tidings. And I announced this race on October 23rd, where we began the campaign to become the next mayor of this city, in the hopes of living up to those words. A campaign to make this city affordable once again, to make it such that every New Yorker could afford their rent, could afford to ride the bus, could afford to raise a family. And we had an event where we had about 200 people in Long Island City. And a brother of mine, Assad, he was there, he took a photo, he shared it on social media. He said, Alhamdulillah, the first Muslim elected official to run for mayor. And a member of the New York Post responded. He said, is it true they did not allow pagers into the event? And what he was referring to was Israel's blowing up of thousands of pagers across Lebanon, killing scores of Lebanese civilians, including...
It was literally the most targeted military attack in human history. Literally, Hezbollah gave those pages out to the people that it trusted within the organization. It was literally the most targeted operation in probably the entire human history of warfare. Because how else could you target 3,000 Hezbollah members with a 99.5% military success rate? Obviously, there were unfortunately some civilians harmed, but it's 99.5% were probably Hezbollah military figures.
Yeah, I mean, and also just the reality is no one uses pagers anymore, and the only reason why Hezbollah used pagers is because they didn't want Israel capping their phones, and so the reality is that this was the most targeted, precise, surgical military operation that we've seen in a long time. So the condemnation of this, what this indicates to me is that Zohran Mamdani probably supports Hezbollah, or this is some sort of soft support for Hezbollah. And it also indicates that there's literally nothing Israel could ever do to satisfy someone like Mamdani, who I'm assuming is probably to some degree an Islamist, right? So
yeah, he is absolutely.
So it's at the end of the day, I find listening to these people's geopolitics tiring, because what it comes down to is Israel is just bad. They're always bad. There's nothing they can do that'll ever be good. Any sort of defense from Israel is always bad. But yet, when Israel is attacked, that's perfectly legitimate because it's self-defense. Zohran Mamdani is not going to mention that there was literally thousands and thousands of missiles, barrages of missiles being lobbed into Israel on the consistent basis since October 7th for many months leading up to that pager attack that Israel did, right? So it's if you're not going to mention, it wasn't it was unprompted. And he's also won't mention Hezbollah. He said, oh, there's just thousands of pagers that blew up over Lebanon.
I know, isn't that so?
Blowing up for no reason.
So cheeky, hey, just to pretend that there was literally no target. I mean, if you were to listen to that speech, you would think that Israel just blew up random pages across all of Israel, with no link or connection whatsoever to Hezbollah.
Of course, and that's why they talk about it like this. Like a lot of these guys do support these terrorist organizations, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, if even if he's, I think that they support it at least in a soft way because like they're so anti-Israel that they view Hezbollah as being, a better alternative. And also, like if you
Yeah.
look at DSA, Democratic Socialists in America, go on their website. Like they openly
Yeah.
say that Hezbollah and these other terrorist groups like Hamas, that these are legitimate resistance organizations, and so they support them. And Zohran Mamdani is a part of the DSA, and he has signed on to all of this. You signed on
Yeah.
to all of it. So this is what he supports, and this is what New York City is going to have to deal with. I mean, obviously, he doesn't have any influence on foreign policy if he's made mayor, but it's worrying given the surge of anti-Semitic hate crimes that New York City has
Yeah.
faced. I mean, he's probably going to not do anything about that, or probably in some way, probably maybe lend support for it. So it's really, really worrying, I would say.
It's pretty incredible because I mean, like the huge population of Jewish Americans in New York City, and like to have this guy as their mayor. I mean, it would be it's. I mean, a guy who's at the very least pretty sympathetic to Hamas and Hezbollah. Like, I think that's pretty disturbing.
Yes, and so like I think that like if you're talking about Mamdani, I gotta get a little
Yeah.
lost. If Hamas and Hezbollah, yes, I think that they'll never come out and say it, but these guys, for example, like if you look at his post October 7th statement, I think he said something on October 8th, and in that statement he talked about all the horrible things that he thinks that Israel is going to do to Gaza. I don't think he ever mentioned Hamas once in that. He didn't condemn Hamas once in that statement. I don't think he's ever condemned Hamas at any. I'll have to like look it up. I
Yeah,
don't want to
never.
lie, but I don't think he really has condemned Hamas, especially in his statements after October 7th. His statements really
Yeah.
focus on condemning Israel and basically saying that he thinks what Israel is going to do. I think he said that Israel cut off electricity in Gaza, which they did do in the immediate aftermath of October 7th. He condemned those actions from Israel. I don't think he really condemned what Hamas, has done or said anything about Hamas immediately after. So to me, that indicates that he supports it. And I'm sorry, it's going to sound maybe offensive to some people. I'm not an Islamophobe, but like I go through the Telegram chats.
Yeah.
For my job as a journalist, and in those
Yeah.
Telegram chats, they were openly supporting what Hamas did. Right, like it was not
Yeah.
ambiguous. They said this is a beautiful thing. We love that our our brothers in the resistance went and did this to the Zionist entity. If you look at a lot
Yeah. I
of the
remember it all.
Muslim organizations in the United States, they openly endorsed what Hamas has done, like CARE, Council of American Islamic
Yeah.
Relations or something.
It's a huge
They
problem.
they openly endorse this stuff, right? Like they won't, if they have
Yeah.
to go on television or do an interview in front of the world, like, of course, like, they'll beat around the bush and they'll dance around it. But when you actually look at what they say privately, they love
Yeah.
October 7th. They support October 7th.
Yeah.
They think it's great.
And
And
let's
so,
not forget
yeah,
the massive scenes of celebration that you saw in Times Square, literally like the heart of New York City, on literally October 7th. Like within hours of it taking place, they were celebrating in New York City.
exactly. And so to me personally, like I wouldn't be shocked at all if Mamdani is a part of that, at least to some degree. He probably does support October 7th. Like he probably
Yeah.
does. And because like if you look at his unwillingness to even condemn Hamas at all after that, and his immediate condemnation of Israel, even before Israel even went into Gaza,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if he supports that stuff. And I also think that what's scary is like if he becomes elected mayor, he's gonna stock his staff with people who have the same viewpoints.
Oh yeah,
So like
dude.
yeah, like it's Islamism and pro-terrorist sentiment being mainstreamed in American politics. I mean, we've seen this happen in Canada, the United Kingdom, and I think it's worrying. And I think that I'm not a Trump supporter or fan, but I do think that the one thing he probably did get right is that we have to be concerned with the immigrants we bring into our country. Not saying
No,
that
I
we
agree with
shouldn't
you
have
there.
anyone. Yeah, it sounds terrible to say, and I know it
You just
sounds
can't
like
have
racist,
you
but
just
it's like
you need you need vetting to stop jihadists. Like that's just like the most basic thing, I think. And it's sad
Yeah.
because I don't think any Western government does that. I don't think any Western government in the entire world vets anybody for jihadism almost.
Well, I think the thing is that, you know, we're so worried about, because we're Westerners, we care a lot. We're very sensitive to being called racist or Islamophobic or xenophobic or these sorts of buzzwords that, quite frankly, we made up to punish ourselves. And when you look at, for example, Saudi Arabia or the UAE or Qatar, like they don't care about that. They'll deport whoever for whatever reason they want. They don't have to give you a reason. They'll just kick you out the country. They don't apologize over it. Here, it's like we feel really bad, but I think part of that is like we put ourselves on a moral pedestal, and so because of that, we feel terrible and icky about, you know, doing stuff like that. But like, I just don't think that our country is going to survive if we just mass import people who don't believe in the Western project, who don't support American ideals or our allies, and want to terraform us basically into like a Western version of like, you know, Syria or whatever. Like it's, you know, and so it's like that's where I kind of start becoming Trumpist in some way. And I'm not Trumpy, but it's like that's where I kind of like, oh, some MAGA has a point there, right? Like it's just like
it's interesting, Corey, because I think we're probably quite similar in that I think you're probably more from a liberal background, and I'm certainly more from like I certainly was more from a liberal progressive background. I mean, I first got into politics like loving the Bernie Sanders campaign like 2015 when I was like a teenager. I came from that sort of background. Probably the one area where I've become a bit more conservative and where I think conservatives have a point is like Islamism in the West is becoming a massive, massive disaster. And like it's the problem with, you know, sectarianism, extremist views, basically parallel societies where there's no integration and assimilation. I mean that's where I have the biggest problem. And I don't know, like I feel very little sympathy for, like, you know, some of the, I think overall a lot of the deportation stuff that Trump has done has been like cruel and stupid. Like, for example, when he deported some random Venezuelan hairdresser, like I thought that was insane and psycho.
Yeah.
But for people who've like actually explicitly expressed support for like Hamas and Hezbollah on American university campuses, and they're international students, like I literally think, no, you shouldn't be in America if that's what you're interested in.
And that's where I draw the line. Like, for example, if you wrote an op-ed saying that you don't support Israel, you think that what they're doing in Gaza is terrible, even if you think it's a genocide, which I don't think that you should be deported from the United States for having the wrong viewpoint. Like, that's just not the way I think our country should operate, right? Like, if you participate in a protest, even, I don't think you should be deported. But if you are spearheading pro-terrorist, basically recruiting efforts on our campus, which some of these kids have, like, and I'm not saying like, oh, Free Palestine or something like that is like supporting terrorism. What I'm saying is, like, if you go on some of these campuses, like Columbia or MIT in the United States, they literally are distributing flyers, basically endorsing Hamas and Hezbollah, saying that they are the resistance. You should support it. Literally saying things like, "Bring the war home, bring the resistance home, join the resistance."
Exactly it, dude. I want to say this, right? I draw a distinction between somebody who's just like a generic supporter of Palestine for humanitarian reasons. Somebody like that, of course, that should be within the bounds of free speech. But anybody involved whatsoever in bring the war home stuff, sorry, immediate deportation. Like, that's just my view, right? Like, if you are literally in the country and you're supporting like war against the United States of America, like can you then be surprised that you then get removed? I think it's just crazy.
You need to move to the United States and like run for like Senate or something. I'll vote for you, because like we have like the same views here. Because it's just like I think we have to like get over this fear of like being called like buzzwords, like, oh, racist, Islamophobic, blah blah blah. Republicans don't care.
Funny? I want to show you this quickly. I found this out while we were talking, because I was just reading Zohran's Wikipedia page. Where's this? Shit, where is it? Hang on, I just posted. Hang on, I'll refresh it. I think it's hang on, I'll find it. Mamdani was naturalized as an American citizen only in 2018. So like, dude, like, yeah, isn't that shocking?
That's
like, like 7 years ago. Yeah, that's pretty recent.
I had no idea.
I know, and I read that he first got I think he first got elected in like 2021. So like within 3 years of becoming a citizen, he was elected. So you know what? Maybe Drew moving to America, maybe that's not that impossible if Zohran literally gets elected 3 years after becoming a citizen. It's funny,
But,
right?
but,
I was shocked by
but,
that. I was actually
sorry.
surprised by that.
But where? Okay, I
No,
need to like look into this guy's background more. Like, where was he prior to? I'm assuming he was in the U.S. He just
no,
wasn't
I
a
think I
citizen.
think look, I think to be fair to him, he's lived his entire life in America. I think what happened. I
Okay.
think he said it in that video. I think in that video he said that he moved to New York when he was 7. So to be fair to him, I mean, he was in America his whole
All
life.
right.
It's pretty
Okay.
surprising though that he's only became a citizen in 2018. That's pretty surprising, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, he did
Okay.
live in New York City for a long time. I actually am a bit surprised though. Like 2018 is pretty recent. And you know what? What Corey has said, Drew moved to America, run for the Senate. Well, you know what? If Zohran can become, mayor within 5 years of being citizen, maybe it's not that impossible. But let's look at this because you retweeted this. He condemned Israel on October 8th while the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust was still unfolding. He didn't condemn Hamas or even acknowledge their actions, slandered Israel as an apartheid state, and effectively blamed Israel. He stood before a sign that read, "The only solution is intifada," called for a boycott of the only Jewish state, refused to affirm Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. And then he betrayed Hezbollah. Yeah, dude, that's pretty fucking shocking, to be honest. It's pretty fucking shocking.
Yeah,
to raise a family.
Sorry, you go.
And we had an event where we had about 200.
Sorry. Yeah, wait.
Oh no, I was gonna say like it's just like it is kind of wild. I mean, I think that like the reality is that foreign policy is not going to be the main issue for most people in a city or any sort of municipal election, right? You're going to care about crime, you're going to care about the roads, schools, just like local stuff. But I do think that like it is, like I said, it's worrying to me because of like what it represents and what this sort of like radical jihadism, because like he'll be the mayor of New York, which is our biggest city, right? Our most
literally
the most globally influential city in the world. And so it's like if that takes root there.
Also, this is probably like this is a fun fact, probably, but it's probably like literally by population, it's probably the biggest city for Jews in the entire world, right? There'd probably be more Jews living in New York City than Jerusalem. Let me double check that fact actually. But I think it'd be pretty amazing if like a full-blown Islamist is ruling it, you know?
I mean, it's like the second most densely populated, the second most Jewish populated place in the world outside of Israel. I think it's New York City. So, like, I think that Zohran Mamdani and his.
I actually looked it up. This is an interesting fact. So, the greater metropolitan area of Tel Aviv has 3.8 million people, Jewish, and New York City has 2 million. But there are literally there's more Jews living in New York City than Jerusalem. So yeah, it's pretty stunning if literally this Islamist guy gets elected.
Yep. And I think that it's just kind of wild, I want to see how this turns out. I mean, he does have a decent base of Jewish support, I think, in the city. So like but I think that there's a difference between like, a 23-year-old girl who like went to NYU who's Jewish versus like someone who is like, a Jewish Russian immigrant who like lives in Brooklyn and goes to Shabbat, right? So like there's a very wide, and I think learning from working, because I'm not Jewish myself, but like working here, it's like I've learned of like kind of the immense amount of diversity within the Jewish community, and there's the difference between culturally Jewish versus religiously Jewish. So we'll see how it turns out.
Yeah.
But I do think that
that is a funny thing where like you get those guys and they'll be like, I'm Jewish and I support Zohran and stuff like that. And then like a lot of the time, like, they're not necessarily religious or a lot of the time they're very secular. It's funny.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, I have secular Jewish friends who are extremely pro-Israel, but I do think that like from my experience, like in working with this community, mostly like the people that talk about how anti-Zionist they are and also Jewish, a lot of these people are not people who identify as Jewish other than when they want to like flout their like anti-Israel credentials, because like a lot of them are just like they enjoy basically being like generic white people in the United States or claiming or passing as white, right? Whether you view Jews as white or not, it's very controversial. But
this is a really good point, right? And this is interesting to me. This new anti-Semitism that we see on the far left, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this because you're like African American yourself. It seems to me that a lot of this like anti-Semitism on the far left actually comes from a place of like they hate white people and they identify Jews as white. Because like you saw like Elias Rodriguez, the guy who did the execution of the Jewish couple in Washington D.C. the other day. He had messages saying like genocidal white people and stuff like that. Like it's funny that the way they identify or the way they structure their anti-Semitism is that they think Jews are white, and that's really stunning because like historically that was not the case at all. I mean, historically, the reason why Jews were so persecuted were they were seen to be not European, seen not to be white. But a lot of these guys on the far left, they think, oh well, Jews are white, therefore they're like fair target. They can be targeted with racism, violence, all this stuff.
Yeah, and if you actually look at what happened to look at the guy that was actually shot at the in DC, Yaron Lipshinsky,
Yeah,
he's not white. Like but he's also like not white. If you look at him, like he looks Middle Eastern, right?
I know.
And so like to me, like this, a lot of the stuff that they keep pushing, like this whole so-called like blind, like basically race hatred because of the fact that they're perceived as white. One, it's wrong because even Ashkenazi Jews are actually like a hybrid of both European and Middle Eastern, and so like they're not really quote unquote white by, well, actually it may be white by cultural standards in the United States, because even Middle Easterners in the United States, a lot of them do pass for white. But I would say that a lot of them were considered white quite frankly before 9/11. Like, you know, being Middle Eastern basically was white. Like we didn't start making that distinction until after September 11th, really.
Yeah, true.
But I do think that like a lot of it, like you said, like it is like a race thing, and like when you look at the way that Islamists have tried to, you know, frame this conflict, like in DC, like I'll see flyers saying like, oh, like brown Palestinian babies are worth just as much as like white Israeli babies or white Jewish babies.
So strange.
And it's like but they do that on purpose. Like if you go to Israel, the plurality race, or no, I shouldn't say race, but ethnicity in Israel is Mizrahim, which are brown Jews, right? Like these are not. You go to Israel, like there's a lot of people, like they can't really distinguish between Palestinians and Israelis by looking at them. It's to the point to where when they go into Gaza to like rescue hostages and things like that, they have to like figure out, does this person speak Hebrew or do they speak Arabic, right? Because that's how you're going to be able to determine. You can't determine by just like by looking at them.
Remember this, and this was obviously infamous, and this was obviously really sad, and it was a massive failing by the IDF, the way that those 3 Jewish hostages from Gaza, the men escaped, and then they were horrifically killed, and it was an absolute disaster. I mean, like it shows like people are racially indistinguishable a lot of the time in the Middle East. I mean, it's so funny it's so strange to be like, these people are white, these people are black. I mean, those hostages were tragically and horribly killed because I don't know, like they were misidentified as combatants or something like that, which was horrible, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a horrible failure by the IDF. I think they acknowledge that at this point. I don't obviously have access to all the intel that they had, and I'm sure that, you know, being over there, like it's a rapidly evolving situation, so you have to make these sorts of like quick, you know, actions. And if you hesitate, then you die. So like obviously the impetus is then to like be incredibly aggressive, which is why I kind of give the IDF somewhat of a benefit of the doubt. But I think in this case, it was like literally the guys took their shirt off. They were like, you know, they basically like waving like a white surrender flag. They basically had their hands up. They're speaking in Hebrew, from what I remember, and they still were shot. So like that is a failure. Obviously, like, you know, killing your own hostages is a failure, and so like that was a horrible tragedy. But basically, like I do think that like you said, it indicates why this whole thing it's not a race thing, right? Like at least Israel Palestine. It's not race. It's like it's a heavily religious thing, and jihadists and Islamists in Iran, basically what they want to do is they want to destroy Israel, replace it with an Islamic State, so they can have an Islamic Caliphate throughout the Middle East, and so they can control Jerusalem. And that's basically what this conflict really boils down to in a lot of ways. Not entirely, but that's really what a lot of it is. And I think that gets lost in the West. And so we've been into this like dumb race thing where, you know, we make it to like white Israelis versus brown Palestinians, because like that's simple and it's stupid and, you know, it's easy to digest.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's basically like trying to transpose American racial dynamics onto the Middle East, which is just so stupid.
Right.
like this is a really good thing to look at. Like what the like this was just so insane by the DSA. Like, and I know like the mainstream DSA like condemned it or whatever, the DSA Liberation Caucus, but it just what an absolute disaster though. Seriously, like
Yeah, I saw that.
Like, yeah, free Elias Rodriguez and all political prisoners. And this is a guy who literally stood over someone and shot them in the back and executed them, reloaded his gun and then executed them. Just so
as they were crawling away. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, like the sheer cold-blooded nature of that murder is so unbelievably psychotic. And then for like these like DSA types to do, I mean, just sickening. I honestly think like AOC and stuff need to like fully distance themselves from that from DSA massively.
Who needs to distance? Oh, AOC. Yeah, I think they disavowed her because she did like a vote.
Yeah, they did disavow, which is so funny.
For like Israel's Iron Dome, and they said they were not going to support it anymore. Yeah,
yeah, she like cried while she voted. That was really stupid. But I was going to say about AOC, she hasn't endorsed Zohran yet, which a lot of these guys are pissed off about. Hey, which is funny.
She hasn't done it yet. I mean, there's still time, and maybe she's like waiting to do it to when she thinks it'll have the maximum impact. Early voting is in New York, I think June 14th. So like she probably would have to do it before then. So sometime within the next couple of weeks, my guess is like the first week of June, probably. She may get out and endorse him. Or maybe she won't, right? Like maybe she'll endorse whoever the Working Family Party wants her to endorse. I think some people say that it's like a risk for her to endorse him. I don't know why it would be considered a risk, but that's what some people have said. But she does have the popularity. I mean, she is popular. She's a popular politician. I think she's a bad one, but she's popular. Yeah. And she's within New York. And so she can, you know, with her popularity, might be able to give him a push to make it really close or maybe nudge him ahead of Cuomo. So yeah, I think maybe she will endorse him, maybe she won't. Not really sure. But I think AOC is terrible. So that's like a whole nother thing. The Democrats are bad.
I was going to say, look how Americanized I am sitting here in Brisbane, Australia, talking about the dynamics of a mayoral race in America. It's very funny. But I mean, it is like, it has a global significance because this is like literally the biggest city in the world. And you know, yeah. I love New York City. I've been there before. It's a beautiful place. Like I don't want this crazy Hamas guy.
How many times have you been in America?
I've been twice. So I went when I was a kid, like when I was like 12 and like for a month. And then I went for like 1 week in 2019, but I really want to go back. Okay. And my brother actually lives in New York City. So I want to go back and see him. Yeah. My brother's getting married over there and he's probably going to end up as like a citizen and living in America for the rest of his life. So, you know,
awesome.
when people complain that like, oh, Drew, you shouldn't care about American politics because you're not American, you're being like Ian Miles Chong, I'll be able to just at least say like, at least I've got family members in America, you know, unlike Ian Miles Chong. But
would you ever move to America or?
You know what? You know what's funny, man? I actually would love to move there just at least for like a year, just to see what it's like. I'd love to live like overseas for a year. I've never lived overseas, so and you know, I am unfortunately obsessed with American politics and history and all that sort of stuff. Like. So I would love to at least, see things for at least, you know, a year, see how I like it maybe. You know, I'm obviously really interested in like sort of political media and all that stuff. And you know, it's funny because, you know, you guys are really the center for that sort of stuff. And like, I'm trying my hardest right now to like kind of make it in the media space as an independent guy. So I'd love to go to America, see what things are like for a little bit at least. And so are you from where exactly? What city are you from in America? I'm out of interest.
I'm from Chicago. So
you know what? We should talk about Kat Abu Gazala then. If you're from Chicago,
let's do that. Yeah,
that's another good one to discuss, right?
She's running like Evanston, or no? Is she running in Skokie? I think she's running. No, I think she's running in Evanston.
Yeah, it's amazing because I read somewhere that the congressional seat she's running for is actually like the most Jewish seat in Chicago. So like that's pretty interesting. Yeah.
She's running in a very Jewish seat, in like a very Jewish part of, you know, she's running in like kind of like the Evanston, Skokie kind of area, which is actually where I'm from. So she would be my family's rep if she were to be elected. There's tons of Jews up there. They are, you know, they tend to, it's like an older Jewish community, very traditional in terms of their values. So Yep, and I think the person that stepped down, her name escapes me. Jan.
I think it was an older I think it was an older
Yes, she
member
was
of the
Jewish
Congress.
herself. Yeah, and the
Yeah,
funny thing
right.
about Kat is like she's not from there. Like she's from Texas.
Yeah.
She basically scanned the map for like what she thought was going to be a vulnerable Democrat, and she carpetbagged her way up to Chicago,
Yeah,
like
so
literally
where is
on
she
the other
from
side of the
originally?
country. She's from Texas. I forgot I forget exactly where, but I think she's
Yeah,
from
okay.
the Houston area. I think, but
Yeah, right.
yeah, her father is like a Palestinian business owner or some sort of magnate. They're very affluent. She moved to Chicago for the sole purpose of running for Congress. Instead of staying where she was and running there, she decided to run in Chicago,
Yeah,
in the Chicago
amazing.
area. And so, like, I don't think she's going to win, especially considering Jan dropped out. That means that there's going to be actual real people. I think Daniel Biss actually entered the race, and Daniel Biss is like actually a progressive, and he actually has local roots, right? Like in Chicago, he actually ran for governor, and so I think he's a much better option because like people don't like carpetbaggers. It's like you're not from
Yeah.
here. You have no roots here. You didn't go to school here. Like you moved here 20 minutes ago. Why? So you can go to Congress? Like how are you gonna represent us? You don't even know us.
Yeah.
Like
Do you
she's
when did she
yeah.
actually move to Chicago?
Dude, I think it was literally in like January.
Holy
I think
shit, that's pretty hardcore.
yeah, I think she literally just like moved to Chicago in January, and like within
That's
2 weeks,
amazing.
she was like making videos saying, "Yeah, I'm running for Congress." Like she literally
That's
like
hardcore,
moved out
dude.
there, got an apartment, and then started
That's pretty
running like a
hardcore.
couple of weeks. Yeah, but it's
And
like
she's really popular online as well. Like she's I don't know. So do you reckon she has a chance of winning?
I have to look at the polls, but like if I'm going based on my gut instinct, I'm going to say no because at the end of the day, she has no actual ties to the city, no actual roots. No one knows her, and there's actual other candidates that people know. Like everyone knows Daniel Biss if you're from that part of the city, because he's run for
Yeah.
governor. He has like a long track record in the city of actually like delivering results and like pushing for progressive policies. And so my guess is that it's going to be someone who actually has ties to the city, especially if it's like a crowded primary. Like Katz is someone who doesn't have like actual, like she doesn't have ties or roots. She's just running based on like her TikTok momentum, whatever you want to call that, just like
Yeah,
her
yeah.
TikToks. And so like I just have a hard time thinking that the things to me that make people popular on the internet are not necessarily what translates into actually being elected into office. And
Oh, dude,
so,
I learned that the hard way. I don't know if you know, but I had like a campaign when I was like 22. I ran and sort of like independent ticket in Australia,
okay.
because I don't know if you know much about my background, but basically I was a protesting against the Chinese government. I got thrown out of university. It was like a big thing in Australia, sort of thing.
Oh
And
no.
I ran this sort of like independent campaign, and it was mostly like an internet sort of type campaign. And like we didn't win many votes. Like I learned the hard way, right? Like it is really on the ground. That's where elections are won. So it'll be interesting to see whether she can translate this sort of internet momentum into winning a seat, especially if she literally moved to Chicago like I don't know, like 6 months ago. It's pretty hardcore.
I just hope
These
that,
were her tweets.
yeah.
These were her tweets right after October 7th.
Oh yeah, like I actually wrote an entire article about her for the Alcheminer. I think I've written like 2 articles about her at this point, and
Oh, okay,
she's
brilliant.
like,
Yeah, let me try to find them.
yeah, like we're basically I kind of chronicled her commentary about
Let me find
Hamas,
that. Yeah.
Israel, and all those things, and basically like she spent a lot of time condemning Israel, calling
Oh,
it a
yes, I think I found it.
genocide. I think almost immediately she was basically pushing a lot of very anti-Israel, stuff. Yeah, that's one of the articles I've written about her.
Yeah.
But yeah, like she's basically just like, you know, uh, basically saying that Democrats are cowards largely because of the fact that they, well, for various reasons, because she doesn't think they're anti-Trump enough. But another reason is
Yeah.
because of the fact that they continue to support Israel and vote to send weapons to Netanyahu. And regardless, you can have whatever opinion of that you want, but like she's, in my view, is
Dude,
like
I'm
I think
shocked.
she's one of these people that, huh?
I'm shocked. I just found this out because I just read on Wikipedia. She's only like 2 months older than me. I didn't realize she was 1999 as well. That's strange. That's really interesting.
Yeah, she's
how old are
incredibly
you, by the
young.
way, Corey?
I'm 31.
Oh, okay, nice. Damn, I didn't realize I'm like literally the same age as her. That's pretty crazy. Damn.
Yeah, she's really young.
Damn. And so she was born to a Palestinian immigrant father and a 7th-generation native of Dallas on her mother's side. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, like literally just like her maternal grandmother was a prominent Texas Republican for 4 decades. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Fascinating. Very fascinating. Damn. So her family held conservative and pro-Republican views, and Abu Gazala was a Republican through her teens. As a teenager, she considered joining the military, hoping to attend Air Force Academy or West Point. Oh, and then she became a socialist. Powerful, very powerful. Damn, man. Brilliant. Good on them. Good. Bloody hell. I'm actually kind of shocked. I kind of feel like shocked that I'm literally the same age as her. And I think that Max Frost guy who got elected to Congress, I think he's 1 year younger than me, which is crazy. I think he's been
he's like what? He's still like 26, 20. I think he's 27. He's young.
No, actually, I looked. He's 2 years older than me. So is he the youngest? Yeah, he's the youngest one. And so
he got elected very young. Yeah.
Damn. I would get so pissed off if Kat Abu becomes like the first like Zoomer proper like 1999 elected person. That would be so annoying. I really hope she doesn't win, man. Let's look at your article. Though Abu Gazala did not specifically mention the ongoing war in Gaza during her campaign launch video, a keffiyeh. It's so funny that she has a keffiyeh in the video.
Oh yeah, in the background.
On Instagram, Abu Gazala posted a painting depicting a woman wearing a keffiyeh wrapped around her head. Caption: "Collective liberation includes Palestinian liberation. Freedom for all means freedom for Palestinians." She's done the river to the sea stuff. She calls Israel far-right militant ethno-nationalism. Beautiful. Okay, yeah. Says that the Israelis love killing Palestinian children. Like she's pretty radical. She's pretty radical. I don't. Is Max? I've got a comment here. He's saying Maxwell Frost is actually based. What's he like, Maxwell Frost? Is he like quite lefty as well on this stuff? Because I think I would say like him being like a Bernie supporter.
I don't think he really has like very like hyper like. I don't think that foreign policy is Max Frost's like
yeah,
the thing. Like for example, like he's not part of like the squad, but I would say like if you look at his voting records, probably is very liberal. I think he actually assigned letters to when Biden was in office requesting for weapons shipments to be paused between Israel and the United States, and I think he's probably like voted for like weapon like ceasefire things and like weapons. Weapon pauses and withholding certain offensive arms between the United States and Israel. So I think that he would probably rank as progressive on the issue in terms of like I don't know if I call him like anti-Israel. I don't think he necessarily hates Israel, but I think he's against this ongoing war. So I would say like he's probably on that side. I think it's going to be hard to find a Democrat that's under the age of like 35 that is supportive of what's happening in Gaza right now, because I just think Democrats.
I want to say as well, like I've criticized the Israeli government before. I've criticized Netanyahu. I don't like obviously I wish the war would end. And look, I obviously wish the war would end. I guess the main way that I would distinguish myself from them is I just think that like Hamas can't be left in charge of Gaza. I think like my personal best case solution would be Hamas like basically are exiled from Gaza. And like I don't support like the Trump plan. I don't want civilians to be harmed. I just think like Hamas needs to lay down their arms and leave Gaza. And I mean, for that view, which I think is actually quite a moderate view, like for that view, I'd be considered like, the most Zionist guy ever. I get accused of taking Mossad money and all this shit. Yeah, it's disturbing. It's disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Like, I would say that my views are pretty similar, and that I think that Hamas should be forced to basically lay down their arms and leave. I think that basically should be like what is the expectation, right? Like, after what they did.
That should be progressive. Dude, at the point at which they're literally executing Palestinian civilians who are opposing their rule, that should be the progressive opinion that they should step down. Like, like it's crazy that anybody would say like a progressive opinion is, yeah, Hamas should be kept in charge of Gaza forever as a dictatorship. Like, that's fucking mental.
Well, it's also just like I think that for a lot of progressives, like they have kind of lost the plot to the point to where they think that like supporting a terrorist group in and of itself is like progressive because of the fact that they are like the the so-called resistance, right? So like
Yeah.
when you look at DSA, who's like the preeminent progressive left-wing organization in the United States, they openly endorse Hamas. They say they commend Hamas, right? In quotes,
Crazy.
like they commend Hamas in their own words. And so basically, what I'm saying is just that like it's not good, obviously, but it's
Okay.
also just but it's also to me like my position on this is that the war in Gaza has gone on for about roughly 19 months at this point, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's incredibly tragic. I don't blame people who are angry with Israel because Israel's the one that's they're dropping the airstrikes, and so like
Yeah.
with that comes just the anger that comes with the casualties that come incurred with that, right? And we can talk about how there are human shields being used and things like that, and how Hamas is committing war crimes. But the reality is that people just see destruction and bombs and dead kids, and they don't like that. And I don't like that either. I don't think anyone likes it. But to me,
Yeah.
like, I think that there's such thing as like a just war, like that does exist. And I think that after October 7th, it makes sense that Israel would pursue this war with the specific, explicit goal of getting Hamas to disarm and remove themselves from Gaza. And I actually don't have an issue with that. But I do question whether or not, after 19 months, is that
The
goal
war
still
is.
attainable?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
like
get what you mean. Absolutely.
it's not like I think that it's a bad goal. It's just like because of the fact that I'm an American and because we went through September 11th, and we went through the war after September 11th in
Yeah.
Afghanistan and Iraq. I've learned that like just bombing terrorists all day, like that doesn't usually solve the issue, and so it's like I do question whether or not Israel's current strategy is going to be able to extract Hamas and how much longer they can do it, and also like how many blows to the international reputation can they actually
Yeah.
are
I
they
think
willing
you're
to
right.
withstand? Yeah.
Exactly. I think you're right. And look, obviously, as a progressive type, as a more progressive person, like I absolutely hate people like Ben Gvir and stuff like that. I think I think they're doing a massive amounts of damage to Israel as well. The international standing, the Khanist speech and all that stuff. Like so I think you're right. And listen, like I wish the war would end. And look, the sad thing is I think you're right. I think somebody could have it's very I mean, it's very understandable to have a nuanced take on it and be like, is the war actually achieving the outcome of defeating Hamas at this point? It's very difficult to say that. I mean, especially as you say, like, when it comes to what happened with America's experience in the war on terror, and how it was ended up being in some ways counterproductive in the goal to fighting terrorism and stuff like that. These things are really complex, and I wish we could have these kinds of more nuanced takes and discussions about this stuff rather than just the insane Hasan Piker, Abu Gazala
Yeah.
type take where it's just like destroy the Zionist entity, and like that's what I obviously oppose, right? Because I actually see that as a genocidal sentiment itself.
It is, but it's like they think that their genocidal sentiments are justified, right? Like, for
Yeah.
example, they think that their violence is justified when it's violence against people that they dislike, right? It's kind of like I said, it's the same sentiment of like Israel can be attacked, but they can't attack back, right? Like it's legitimate to
Yeah.
attack the people we don't like, but the people who we don't like also have no right to respond. And so basically that's where that sentiment is coming from. I wish we could have like more like nuanced conversations on this, but I also think that social media
Yeah.
doesn't really lend itself to that because you get like what 240 characters, so it's like
Yeah.
and also just like
It's
I
really
don't
gonna
know,
be
like
hard.
I get into a lot of fights on social media, but I do think that like the more like I think confrontational and kind of like antagonistic people becomes like it kind of incentivizes you to be combative as well. So like I feel
Yeah, it's very difficult.
like X or Twitter, whatever you still call it, like I like the platform. I find it addictive, even though it's a terrible platform
Yeah.
filled with like Nazis and racists. But like I do
Yeah.
think that like it's like as much as I enjoy being on the platform, like it's just not a great environment for nuanced conversations. Even when I'm like around like people who are Zionists like myself, it's like there's so you can be so deep into Zionism as well that you can't see some of the flaws or some of the issues with Israel or any other country, or you exalt Israel to the point to where you're unwilling to acknowledge that they do anything wrong. And I think that's also a massive blind
I want to
spot.
give a good. You know what's a good example of that? Like you know someone like that Randy Fine guy,
Oh
who's
yeah, yeah, he's nuts. Yeah.
he's unhinged and nuts. Like it literally was talking about nuking Gaza, and like he has some really really ugly and frankly disgusting tweets. Basically, it's just horrible. It's just horrible.
I've written about him for the Allgemeiner.
Oh yeah, let me try to find your.
Yeah, so like Randy Fine is, he's from Florida. He's Jewish. He's extremely Zionist, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with supporting Israel's existence. But
Yeah.
I would say like
think this is the funny thing. I think Israel should exist as a state, and if you think that, you're automatically a Zionist, right? Like,
yes, but it's for him. It's like it crosses over into, I think, dehumanizing Muslims and Palestinians, to where I think he said some some horrible things, like to the point to where like it seems like he's okay with them dying, or
he's like
I would say some things that I would probably classify as pretty racist as well, just because like when you start saying the things that I can't remember exactly the words that he's used, but like
I'll try to find it. It was pretty bad. I think he like
he said
there was a photo of like a kid who had been killed, which was obviously horrible, and then he just basically said like good, and like obviously that like as a human being, I'm ultimately a humanist at the end of the day. Like it was stuff like may the streets of Gaza overflow with blood. Like that's fucking insane. Like that is psycho. That is psycho. At the end
that's kind of like our American Ben Gavir, right? Like it's
exactly.
It's pushing like the sort of sentiment that like you would hate Israel because of people like Randy Fine, which is bad. He's not a good representative of Israel.
That's the sad thing, because like people like Randy Fine and Ben Gavir, their insane commentary and frankly like their absolute celebration of death and destruction, like that is why there are these young people who've been so radicalized, and they feed off that, and they feed off that hatred, and they use it for their own hatred, and it just becomes this disgusting online cesspit of hatred and racial hatred. It's a really sad thing. These people, they actually do insane amounts of damage to Israel. It's actually
of
crazy.
Course.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I just saw this, but it's Bad Empanada. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever had an encounter with him before?
I know of him. I've seen some of his videos. Unfortunately, he has. I think he's always been on the left, but I think after October 7th, like he made Israel kind of like his. Yeah, to the point to where it's not like he's just like anti.
I think he was a socialist prior to that. Like he was a socialist, and it was interesting because I remember watching a video of his from like 5 years ago where he was criticizing tankies for like celebrating what China was doing to Uyghurs and stuff like that. So I thought that he was actually someone more anti-tanky for a long time. But then after October 7, he basically became just full hardcore tanky, probably now one of the worst tankies on the internet. And he's openly said that he thinks like every single Israeli should be killed, even kids. And it's just funny now he's saying that that Ezra Klein is a death cult. I didn't even know what the fuck, how he could even argue that. It's so fucking strange. But
I have to watch that video because I want to hear that. I have to hear that case be made that abundance is somehow a death cult. That must be very. That's got very entertaining video. I actually saw his. I think he actually. Did he make a video, I think, endorsing the Israeli embassy murders? I think he probably did.
Yeah. He basically, he was, it's one of those problems, right? It's one of those ones where they basically endorse it without outright saying it, right? So
right.
I think he basically, how did he do it? He just basically like made a video where he was going, oh yeah, guys, I really don't like killing, like, and he was like being sarcastic about, like, to the point that it was so obvious that he supported, like, literally just executing these people in the streets. And yeah, he's a very bloodthirsty guy. Like I remember there was a Haaretz writer who's like, you know, and obviously Haaretz is very left wing. It's very critical of the war in Gaza. There was a Haaretz writer who was trapped in a kibbutz on October 7 with his 2 infant children who were literally like 3 years old and 2 years old. And they were literally Hamas fighters outside their direct home in the kibbutz, you know, firing guns, trying to get inside, trying to kill them. And Baden Panada went and literally tagged him on Twitter and said, I wish Hamas got you, and I hope that you get your wish in the future. And like, dude, like this guy had his 2-year-old and 3-year-old kids with him. And so that's where it's really sick, where like he actually is straight up endorsing killing kids. And like for Hasan Piker to then platform him and, like, you know, make him this big, you know, like he literally helped him grow a big audience, right? That was really, I think that was probably the worst thing that Hasan has ever done. And he did that because what happened was Baden Panada made a video where he was basically criticizing Hasan, saying Hasan was being a Zionist because Hasan wouldn't straight up say kill all Jews or whatever. And I think Hasan like didn't want to, you know, lose his street cred with the insane tanky leftists. So they organized a debate, but the debate ended up just being those two agreeing with each other on everything and celebrating each other. So yeah, it's really sick. These guys are like absolutely fucking sick. And I think it's really like
crazy.
You know what's crazy to me, right? The Rodriguez guy who went out and killed those 2 guys, killed the couple, the young couple, and literally shot them in the back. Just the details of the murder are so heinous if you read about it. Like shot them in their backs, and then the young girl was trying to crawl away in her own blood, and he literally reloaded his gun, went back, and executed her. Just the most cold-blooded murder imaginable. And the amazing thing is, if you looked at that guy's Twitter account, which was still, I'm not sure if they've taken it down now, but it was still online for at least, you know, a while after the shooting. If you looked at his tweets, they were almost borderline exactly what Baden Panada posts. And also it's basically the rhetoric that Hasan Piker pushes as well. And so that's the scary thing, right? Like there are people like you get all these people going, oh, they're just online extremists. It doesn't matter. They're just anonymous accounts. They're not representative. But dude, like, here was a guy who had the same views as Baden Panada and went out and just executed people, just shot them in the fucking back. So that's the really scary thing, right? Like these guys actually are acting on their views.
Yeah, and like the thing is, it's just like it's completely true that like these guys are idiots, but like because we live in this era of social media where you can build a platform, and I'm grateful for that. Like I like having a platform. Yeah. I'm not a huge creator, but like maybe hopefully one day I will be. But like I just think that like it's kind of cool to be able to like share your views, but like like but the incentives of social media are so kind of like toxic that you are pushed to say these more and more extreme things in order to kind of like win over your audience or try to win these like arbitrary purity tests that are constantly like coming up. And so like because people get audience captured and they don't want to lose their audience because their audience is like paying for their whatever subscription, Substack, whatever, the incentive is to say more and more extreme things to constantly like appeal to that audience. And so they can't do anything other than just continue to say the wildest, most craziest shit. And that's basically what we're seeing. And so for Hasan Piker and like the Baden Panada dude, like these are people who I want to know what's going on in their own head. Like I want to believe that they don't actually believe a lot of stuff what they're saying, but they have to say it because they.
To be honest, I think they've managed to convince themselves by this point. That's
that basically radical jihadist anti-Semitic terrorism is good and justifiable because of I don't know because of.
I think they've managed to convince themselves, and it's a scary thought. It's like. It's like you're completely right. Like it's like the echo chambers. It's like a self-radicalization.
And the thing is that they push this stuff, and Hasan's a millionaire multiple times over. I don't know if this Baden Panada dude, what kind of money he's making. I'm sure he's getting paid well.
I've looked into it. And I've looked into it, and I think he makes basically maybe like the equivalent of like maybe $70,000-$80,000 a year. But to do that in Argentina, which is a poorer country, like he lives like a king over there.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is, and like. Someone doxed his address to me, which I never shared to anybody, right? Like he's literally doxed my address. Somebody sent me his address. I looked at his apartment. It's a fucking rich apartment, right? So and I didn't dox it because I'm different to him, right? But it's strange.
But the thing is like what they do is like they push this extremist stuff. They don't have to live with the consequences of what they're pushing for. But the thing is that they will encourage their followers to be more extreme, radical, anti-Semitic, pro-terror, violent. They want you to ruin your life while they're living in luxury and things like that.
Exactly. Isn't it funny?
And
like Hasan Piker, he went on a big trip to France. You know that whole thing where he got stopped for like 10 minutes at the border or whatever. That was when he was coming back from like a luxury trip to France, like a luxury holiday to France. And then meanwhile, like he wants all his followers to go out and like fucking kill people, basically. Like it's just so hypocritical.
That's I saw another kind of like far left tanky streamer who basically made similar arguments, where he said he endorsed and he praised Elias Rodriguez's murder of Sarah Milgram and Yoram Lipshinsky, the two Israeli embassy workers. And he was saying like, yeah, we need to like, this is what the resistance looks like. This is what it is. And we need to like bring more of the resistance to like every Zionist around you. If you see a Zionist, you need to like remember Elias Rodriguez and what he was doing, and you need to like embody his spirit by basically doing the similar thing. So basically calling to murder more self-proclaimed Zionists. And I'm thinking to myself, like, bro, this dude has like hundreds of like millions of followers. He's not doing that. Like, he's not going to ruin his life. He wants you to do that so he can, I guess, get some sort of street cred. But like, it's like you ruin your life. It's almost like a cult, right? Like that's what cult leaders do.
Yeah, it is.
Like they want the members of the cults to ruin their lives, but it's like if you're in a cult, your life is ruined. But the actual cult leader, they live in a life of luxury. They get to, you know, bask in the glory and be the face of the whole thing and get all the privileges and all the perks and all that stuff, the money, the glamour. But it's like you're the one who gets your life ruined by joining that cult. And I think that's what these guys are doing. They're building a cult of personality and extremism to which they're pushing people to do things. But at the same time, they're not going to do it themselves. It's like, yeah, like they're not going to ruin their lives. They just want you to do it for them. And I think that that's sick and it's wrong. It's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. Yeah. You know, and they're doing it to their impressionable fans. They're like, what, 22 years old that don't know any better, and they're going to, you know, these people are sick.
And look at some of these people, like they're explicitly taking advantage of young people. Maybe they're more vulnerable, etc. And like, they're basically just trying to encourage them to destroy their own lives. It's actually really sick. It's genuinely really sick. It's funny. We've got this comment by Max, who's like more pro-Palestine, saying, it's like you're ignoring the reality of Nazi death camps and instead attacking French resistance figures because they once ate cheese or drinks. I don't think any comparison with Nazism and the Holocaust is legitimate. I think it's just Holocaust inversion. Like they do this just to make Jews feel bad. Because I saw a tweet the other day. I saw a tweet the other day, and it was basically something saying like there have been conflicts over the past 20 years that have had 10 times the number of deaths in the Israel-Palestine conflict since October 7, and yet nobody makes the comparison with the Holocaust. And so that's just it's just really sorry, you go on.
Well, my thing is like my theory is like people don't know history, so they know like maybe 3 things that have ever happened, and like one of them is like the Holocaust, the other one's like apartheid South Africa, and the third one's like Jim Crow and slavery in the United States. So like they just keep making those 3 comparisons. It's like they compare everyone to Nazis. Yeah, they're comparing like the people and they're comparing Zionist Nazis. But they compare like everyone. They compare Chinese to Nazis. Like it's one of these things where it's like I think the comparison's overdone because it's like one, it doesn't fit, but like it just like you're using it for everything. But it's also like you said, Holocaust inversion in the sense of like they want. I think there's this resentment that I guess maybe Jews are seen as having some sort of maybe a moral high ground or something because of the Holocaust, and so they're kind of viewed as like ultimate victims. And I think that they want to accuse the Jews of doing their own version of the Holocaust so they can kind of take that from them and reassign that victimhood to someone else, in this case the Palestinians. I think it's like but I also think part of it's like a resentment towards Jews, because Jews are a very successful minority within the United States and also in other places. And I think that since Jews are successful and also are ethnically like white passing or basically white people, and you know, I think that a lot of it is just like a resentment towards people that they perceive as like successful and wealthy and white, and
Yeah.
they're weaponizing the Holocaust against them, which I think is kind of like is very perverse, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't know, like there's just no comparison. Like it's not. First off, what happening in Gaza is not the Holocaust. It's not a genocide. But even if you believe that, like compare that to like what happened in the Holocaust in places like Auschwitz, where it literally was like, I mean, the reason why the Holocaust is historically significant isn't just because it happened during World War II or because it's a European country that did it. It's because it's like the first and I think probably only genocide that was like done so like efficiently and basically with like mechanical precision. Like basically like they built entire camps, machines.
Exactly.
Um,
Industrialized murder.
it was industrial. That's the word I was looking for. It was the first and only
Yeah.
industrialized genocide in that way. To the point that they really were like, they weren't just like wanton killing people. Like they had your name, right? Like they were like actually like reporting, okay, we've killed all these people, like we've documented it precisely, like we've killed this many Jews, here are all their names, here how many we have to go. Like that's a whole nother level of evil. And so what Israel's doing in Gaza, where there's airstrikes and things like that, I mean, I don't think it's a genocide, but even if you were to make that case, it wouldn't be comparable to what happened in Auschwitz in either
Well,
scale,
Auschwitz
nor
was literally
intent,
like
or style. Yeah,
full, full extermination. Like it was a death camp. It was a literally extermination thing, and like things to me that like that undermine the case that this is like a genocide. Like for example, undermine the case that like what is happening right now in the Middle East is genocide. Like for example, like there have been vaccination programs in Gaza since the start of the war. Like
yes.
that does not necessarily indicate to me a plan to exterminate the population. I'm trying to respond here to Max in the comment. We've got a commenter, Max, who's basically saying, Max is saying like that it's an extermination campaign, and like to that, obviously it's a horrible war, and I think war is horrible, and I wish the war wasn't happening and too many civilians have died. I agree. I mainly blame the moral blame for the death of civilians on Hamas because of their systematic strategy of weaponizing, civilians as basically human shields, etc. That said, though, like when you talk about the Holocaust, it's an extermination. It's a massive extermination. Like to this day, the population of Jews across the entire world is still lower than it was prior to World War II. People don't know that fact. Hey, people don't know that fact, and it's so different. It's just so different. Like I know, like a lot of I've read that, people were calling the earlier rounds of Israel Hamas conflict in Gaza in like in the early 2010s. I've read people calling that a genocide back then. And like there's just no comparison because like listen, like the global population of Jews is still lower than it was prior to the Holocaust. It actually came very close to completely eliminating the Jewish people. Whereas like there have been vaccination campaigns in Gaza during the war. It's a horrible war. I wish the war would end, but there's been vaccination campaigns to try and protect civilians from disease, etc. So I just think I think the vast majority of people who use the Holocaust comparison when it comes to Gaza, I think they're doing it particularly because it involves the Jews and they're trying to use Holocaust inversion to weaponize guilt, etc.
Yeah, basically you're right. And like I said, there have been, I mean, like Israel for the longest was like allowing food in Gaza. There obviously was like a almost 3-month pause, and even I was like, okay, well that's like quite a bit much. They did allow,
Sorry,
they
can you
have
say that again?
allowed food to
I
go
can
back.
hear you. Sorry.
Huh? Oh,
Oh, sorry, I
can
can
you hear
hear
me?
you. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Sorry, I can hear you now. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, I basically would say like I agree. Like I said that like the civilian to command casualty ratio in Gaza is actually relatively low compared to what you would expect in a Middle Eastern war of this style, especially considering the fact that civilians cannot evacuate. Now, I think that's kind of key. You can't really compare this to a lot of wars because in other wars, civilians are allowed to become refugees because Palestinians are treated quite frankly terribly by the whole world.
Yeah.
They can they
don't let them in. Egypt's not letting them in, etc.
Yeah, no one's letting them evacuate because I mean they are being used as human shields, but beyond
Yeah.
that, they just can't evacuate in the first place. So if they can't evacuate, there's going to be, I mean, there's no other way if you're going to do a war and conduct airstrikes in Gaza, there's just going to be lots of civilian casualties that they can't get out of the way, and they're also being used as human shields by jihadists. So, I mean, like, I think it's hard to try and pinpoint how many civilian casualties there should be or what you would expect. But I also think, like I said, it's an unprecedented kind of war. I think it's a terrible tragedy. I don't think it's a genocide because the intent is to, like, they have very clear intent, which is to eliminate Hamas and to, disarm them and to get back the hostages. Now, you could say that there have been people within the Israeli ministry who've said some horrible things during this war, and that's true. But I also add that that's probably not uncommon in lots of wars, even in American wars. Are after September 11th, a lot of people in the United States said some, I would quite frankly say, genocidal things in this country after September 11th. But I also would say that if you look at the actions of what Israel has done in Gaza, the vaccination campaign, allowing food to go in, allowing food to return back to Gaza after a 2-month pause, which was done strategically because Hamas had stolen that aid and then sold that aid to pay their fighters, so that aid became a weapon of war in and of itself. So they basically had to create a new strategy to redeliver aid to make sure it's going directly to the people of Gaza and not to Hamas, to kind of cut off that slush fund. And so I think that for example, Ireland literally has had to go try to change the definition of genocide to try and make it fit. They've been crying that, this is a genocide. They joined the South Africa ICJ case, and they actually are requesting that the genocide definition be expanded so it covers what Israel is doing, meaning that they don't have enough evidence or dirt to pin it on Israel now. So they have to actually change the rules. So it's ridiculous.
That's pretty incredible. To say that they want to change the literal definition. I mean, that's obviously very strange.
Yes. What else?
Max,
Did you want
Max
to talk about?
saying, look at. Oh yeah, sorry. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I said I think you said you want to talk about the Democrats or something like that. I don't know. Right. Maybe.
Yes. We should talk. We should talk a bit about the Democrats. Maybe before we can probably go for. I might have to go in maybe 20 minutes or something like that. But sure. Let's definitely talk some. Let's definitely talk some more about. That's pretty funny to me. I'm going to bring up your. I'm going to bring up your page. I want to go into just in general these big problems, for example, that the Democrats are facing with unpopularity in America. What do you think is you better move off this topic because you'll be condemned by history, lads. Sure thing, Max. If that's the case, I mean, both of us have literally said that we want the war to end. We both literally want the war to end by just having Hamas surrender. And I don't see how that's a bloodthirsty position, considering Hamas has literally executed Palestinian civilians. But let's talk a bit about the rent-free stuff. This is his ad.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes, this guy's gonna freeze the rent.
No hike?
None.
This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
Paid for by Zohran for.
Look, it's good ad. 6 million views. He's good at speaking. I've got a comment here. Talk about the Soviet supermarkets. What does he want with the supermarkets again?
I think he wants to create government-run owned supermarkets.
Beautiful.
So he can implement price controls, and I mean, I guess they'll just be shortages all the times.
I want to find. Oh wow! Went to a rare and antique bookstore today, and they had Zoran's dad's book, "Politics and Class Formation in Uganda." That's actually interesting. Bloody hell!
I think his father's a hardcore leftist as well.
Yeah. Okay, so this is his.
Grocery prices are out of control. The cost of eggs and milk has skyrocketed. Some stores are even using dynamic pricing, jacking up the cost over the course of a day depending on what they can get away with. It doesn't need to be this way. I'm Zohran Mamdani, and as mayor, I will create a network of city-owned grocery stores. It's like a public option for produce. We will redirect city funds from corporate supermarkets to city-owned grocery stores, whose mission is lower prices, not price gouging. These stores will operate without a profit motive or having to pay property taxes or rent, and will pass on those savings to you. Grocery prices are out of.
The problem is though, yeah, I mean, okay. Do you want to talk about this? I'm
Well,
interested.
like the funny thing here is like grocery stores already don't really make much profit. Like the profit margin in, I don't know how it is in Australia, but the profit margin in American grocery stores are
same in
like
Australia.
razor thin. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they don't really make much. They make money on like value, but like every individual product is just like it's so thin. So like there's only how much more can you like make things cheaper by unless the government is just straight up subsidizing it. At that point, it's basically you may as well make it into like a food bank, right?
Yeah.
I think that like but it's also just like I love
My
New
worry is
York,
that-
but like they can't run, like they can't even like manage keeping like the trains like running well or
I
on
mean, the
time.
subways
So
are
like
pretty bad. There's a lot of problems with like the subway and violence on the subway and all this stuff. It's interesting. I think the worry is that like, I mean, by doing this, it's like going to distort price signals. And like historically, when you distort price signals like this, that's how you then get like artificial scarcity, because then people won't produce things and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, like what's his plan if he were to do this and there's all these like, you know, local mom and pop store bodegas and stuff like that. Like what if they then go out of business? I don't know. Like it's interesting. It's interesting. I think I just can't see it working well. Like, and I want to see his homelessness and the subway stuff, which is really interesting. Crime on the subway isn't a big problem in New York City. Of course it is. What are you talking about? It is a huge problem in the subway. That's like why there were like swings towards the Republicans.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, this is bad. Zohran spoke at a protest with Sami Dune. Sami Dune's literally designated terrorist organization. So bad, dude. That's so bad.
That's the
there's
thing,
only
like
one solution: Intifada, anti-coalition, the CCP-funded network connected. Oh my god, dude. Cud's News. Oh yeah, Cud's News is linked to Hamas, right? That's pretty bad. It's pretty fucking bad. Ah, damn, man. I want to try find his subway thing. Where
Long holiday weekend is tough, but here's some news that'll put some pep in your step. Like all campaigns, we hired a research firm to poll New Yorkers. What they just found? It's very exciting. Let's start with the headlines. We're now at 27% in the first round of ranked choice voting, firmly in second place behind Andrew Cuomo, with the next campaign in single digits. And in the final round, after every other candidate's been eliminated, it's us at 44% and Cuomo at 56%. That's a 12-point gap. In March, it was 40 points. And we've gotten here while a third of New Yorkers still haven't heard.
it's a shame that Cuomo's running, because like Cuomo is like an idiot, and like I mean, is there any other do you know if there's any other candidate who can stop Zohran? Because like I feel like probably part of the problem here is that like Cuomo's an idiot.
Well, like Brad Lander is like in third place. Zelenor is somewhere down there. Eric Adams is somewhere in La La Land. I think he's running as independent at this point. Yeah, like there's a few candidates, but like all of them I think are just straight up either the ones that I like. The one that I like is, I think it's not Brad Lander. I forget his name. He has like no chance, which is why I forgot his name at this point. But like, I think none of them really have good ideas. Like, for example, Cuomo is an NIMBY, I think.
Yeah.
And so like he doesn't want to like build new housing, which is terrible. New York needs that. But Zohran is basically everything bad about progressivism, like wrapped up in one person. I mean, I'm from Chicago, which we're experiencing now Brandon Johnson as we speak. And I think that Zohran's probably a little more intelligent than Brandon Johnson, but I think he's not that much better off, because like I said, he's basically a puppet of far left activist organizations that are economically illiterate and crazy. So, and also just like don't really care about public safety, that believe that public safety is,
like a reactionary concept.
Yeah, like like arresting people. I think he's literally a prison abolitionist. Like, I don't think anyone's like built him on that. Like they don't have debates on this. They probably should have debates. I'm surprised they don't have debates in New York City for the Democratic primary. But he is a prison abolitionist. So like someone needs to like actually grill him on that, because like that's kind of crazy.
I gotta find this. I mean, what do these people think would happen if you abolish prison? Like, I just don't understand.
I mean, I don't know. I think that they believe that like the prisons themselves are worse because like they make people more violent when they're in prison. They believe that
You must incarcerate.
prisons, yeah, like they believe like a restorative model in which when people commit crimes, like you basically put them in timeout and give them like a juice box and have them like do coloring books and they come out and they become a whole new person and they become like,
So
like
true.
they yeah, like they believe in like restorative justice, which
The guy
I
who
just don't
the guy
believe
who lit
in.
that woman, the guy who lit that black woman on fire in the subway and just burned her to death. Like, yeah, just give him like a fucking coloring book in prison, and then he'll be reformed.
Yeah, basically. And it's like this notion that like since prisons don't heal people or reform people, that we should go towards a model that's basically soft on crime, that's supposedly supposed to heal people. But that just hasn't happened in the places where it's been implemented, whether it's Chicago
Never
or San
ever.
Francisco or Seattle. And what it does is just empowers and emboldens criminals to continue doing their actions because there's no actual negative consequences for doing so. And basically, I mean, I lived in Seattle. In Seattle, every store actually has like their own little private security with their own mini like little machine gun staying at the front door because there's like no cops because they implemented this very like progressive reform like restorative justice like sort of like policy, criminal justice policy in the city, in which criminals are basically allowed to run rampant. They also defund the cops, so there's no cops anywhere. So everyone has to have private security. There's private security all over Seattle and also San Francisco. And
Yeah,
so it's kind of it's like South Africa, kind of like where like everyone has private security because
that's
they
not a
can't
good.
trust the cops. And so like
So bad, dude.
yeah, and I think that maybe the future of San Francisco, Seattle, New York City, if Zohran is elected. But he's emblematic, I think, of just broader issues within the Democratic Party, in which they have gone far left and they are alienating America
Oh,
because
this
of
is
it.
funny. What? Why is he calling Modi a war criminal? What the fuck? Like, is it because of like the war with Pakistan recently?
Yeah,
Just so
basically.
fucking strange. Yeah.
But it's Islamism, right? Like it's like Modi's the
Yeah.
war criminal, and is he siding with the radical jihadists of what they did in Kashmir recently? Like
Oh yeah,
it,
yeah. Dude, this is
the whole
amazing. So
left.
instead of yeah, it's a weird left wing thing. Hey, like they all wanted to see they all wanted to basically be like India equals Israel, Pakistan equals Hamas. Like it's just so dumb.
Yeah, I actually saw someone on Twitter who was like supporting Palestine has made everything so easy for me because they stopped supporting
Oh, I remember that.
India after they listened to their argument and they sounded like quote unquote Zionists. So like now they
Yeah.
support
Amazing.
what the terrorists
Amazing.
did in Kashmir.
I remember that actually. I remember that. Mamdani, that post you're talking about had like millions of views. This one's amazing. So he wants to, instead of hiring more NYPD, he wants a Department of Community Safety. I don't really get like what this is supposed to do, but so he basically just thinks that like violence comes from lack of public health, and I don't even know what
Oh
does he want.
God.
So mental health. Too many New Yorkers currently experience mental health issues, and with little access to support, suffer in subway stations on the streets. The task before the
Oh
city is to
God.
provide real solutions to people in need of mental health support. So what does he want? So
He wants
he wants.
lawlessness.
Yeah, I know. None of these
Chaos.
people actually. None of these people want to get like mentally ill, homeless people off the street. So like, I mean, they don't. They think that sort of like hospitals for mental ill people and stuff like that. They think that's like prison, right?
Yeah, basically, like I mean, in America, I don't even think it's legal to have asylums anymore. We used to have them, but like
Yeah,
my argument now is that, quite frankly, some people are nuts and they need to be put in places where they can actually grapple with whatever mental health problems they have and whatever drug
yeah,
problems they have, and be forced to actually like confront that and get the help they need before they're released into the rest of society. Because I don't know how it is in Australia, but in America we have a terrible homelessness problem where I walk down the street
yeah.
and I just see
So
like
bad.
literally like insane people like running
Yeah.
across, like naked,
Yeah.
just
Dude,
like
so you know how I said that my brother lives in New York City?
yeah.
So my mum went to visit him a couple months ago, and she was with her she was with a partner as well in New York City,
Mhm.
and they're walking down Wall Street, which is like, you know, obviously one of the most like, you know,
Prestigious,
yeah, literally Wall Street, right?
affluent,
And
wealthy, yeah.
yeah, and like a homeless guy ran out like and started and it was like masturbating naked next to my mum, and
It's
this is
not
Wall
shocking,
Street.
yeah.
Yeah, dude, and
Oh,
this is in Wall Street, right? And so we've got someone in the chat going like right now going like, oh, like Drew, you're exaggerating that New York City's unsafe and stuff like that. But dude, like that was the experience of my mum going to New York City as a tourist like 3 months ago to see my brother, and like yeah, literally Wall Street, or not 3 months, it was like 6 months ago, but like literally Wall Street, and which is supposed to be like, you know, a tourist friendly area, and a homeless guy just jumped out and just he was like masturbating. Like it's obviously like really bad situation.
Yeah, I don't deny that like New York City overall as a major city is safe, but like you just do have that homelessness issue that is just out
Yeah,
there because they are literally people who are they're without a home. Like they're out in the streets. A lot of them are on drugs. I think probably a majority of them are on drugs. They
yeah,
lose their minds and they just like start acting insane. And it's not just in New York. It's in DC where I live. It's in Chicago. It's in especially warm weather cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, where they just kind of like these people are straight up nuts. They walk around outside naked. They are
yeah,
violent. They're confrontational. I was literally on a bus in DC, and there's like I was literally like going to visit a friend for dinner or something,
yeah.
and there's like these two homeless dudes on the bus, and I guess they consider like the bus like their territory or whatever, and so they got
Yeah.
into a fight, an argument with each other for one of them for encroaching on the other one's territory, I guess panhandling
No,
territory.
dude.
And so like one of them pulled out a knife and started like swiping at the other one. And I think he
Oh,
hit him and was like
dude.
stabbing him. And I was like on the bus, and I think I got up and I like was like ran to the door and like started slamming on the door to get out, and like everyone else was like
Yeah,
doing the same. It was like a
yeah.
scene out of like a horror movie. Like everyone was like trying to get out the bus because like we all thought that we were gonna be like
Oh,
next
dude.
we're all gonna get like stabbed. But like that's how I
Oh,
am. Like I get like I no, I'm keeping it real. Like I get afraid around a lot of homeless people
yeah, dude.
because in
That's the unfortunate
like
reality. Unfortunately.
because they have weapons and they will not hesitate to stab you or kill you. I mean that's happened in
Yeah,
where I live
dude.
quite not yeah.
Yeah, dude, I fully understand you. It's really sad because like I certainly came from like a more like lefty sort of progressive background. When I ran in 2022, for the Senate in Australia, we wanted to do what, like, you know what Abu Gazala is doing now, where she's like trying to like feed the
Yeah.
people with her campaign and stuff like that. I was trying to do stuff like that with my campaign, right? And we were trying to do like sausage sizzles for the homeless and stuff like that, just like hot dogs basically. And like we were just trying to like help people. And there were a couple times where like unfortunately some violent, mentally ill homeless people came up and like overturned the tables and like just like yeah, like attacked people, violence. There was a point where someone was threatening to stab someone. Like this stuff is a massive disaster, right? And like that's what unfortunately kind of like woke me up a bit, because like I guess prior to that, my thought would have been that like, you know, homeless people are just people who, you know, have fallen on hard times, and I feel really bad for them, and I still feel bad for them. But unfortunately, like having direct experience, I then had to realize like, no, a lot of the times it's drug addiction and mental health crisis, and you know, it's very hard to interact with them if you're not actually, you know, like a trained social worker or something like that, because there's dangerous elements to it. There's violence and stuff like that. And I think like a lot of people on the left like just can't accept that. Like they like I think like someone like Zohran, like he wouldn't accept that, like unfortunately like there's problems with like homeless people being violent and like scary to people in the streets. I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like it's this weird thing that has emerged on the left where I guess they see homelessness as like, you know, people who are homeless as like very like one of the most oppressed, victimized classes. And like, yes, like of course they are, you know, really in horrible conditions, but at the same time, like, you know, it's very hard to interact with homeless people unless you're like literally like a trained social worker. Like these people should not be on the streets. A lot of the time they're violent. A lot of the time they're like very antisocial, and like it's not conducive for having like a safe, orderly public society when you literally are on a train, as you were just describing, and people are just stabbing each other in front of you. Like, that's not how you have like a orderly society. That's how
and
like
that's
also, here's another thing, like sorry to cut you off, but like I know like there's a lot of these guys who on the left who like love public transport, and they really want to have public transport over like cars and stuff like that. Of course, like, I love public transport too, but like when you have just like violence in the subways and people smoking meth and shit like that, like you're not gonna have like a really nice public transport. It's weird. It's a big problem they have.
I just find it was like I don't know, like I actually just I saw this like viral video again that went viral maybe like a year ago, and kind of like is recirculating about like Dubai kind of propaganda, and they have like a video where they're just like, yeah, we don't have any homelessness because like we have a Ministry of Happiness, and like the Ministry of Happiness just like remove them, so there's like over here. I was just thinking like, wow, that's like dystopian and terrible, but like, damn, I wish we kind of had like a Ministry of Happiness, just like remove the homeless, just like put them somewhere else, like where I don't see them.
Well, look, here's the thing, right? Like, if somebody is having a mental health crisis and they're like severely schizophrenic and they're on meth, like they can't just be on the streets. They can't be.
No,
on the
they can't.
Like,
no.
And look, the solution is like we do need to have like sort of like public institutions probably to look after these people. But like you just can't have them on the streets. It's funny, he's got $30 minimum wage thing, and there's one before like Mamdani wouldn't stop at making it easier for vulnerable newborns to remain in the custody of drug-addicted parents. He also co-sponsored legislation that would have prohibited people from providing anonymous reports of suspected child abuse or neglect. Like, what the fuck, dude? That's crazy. Like, what the fuck? That's mental.
And that's kind of the thing, though. It's like these policies are just like straight up insane. Like you're right that we can't just have like drug addicted homeless people. I mean, I'm kind of like on the Michael Schnellenberger train where he's just like, we just force people into drug rehab, like even if they don't want to. Like,
I think you have to.
Like, it's involuntary, but like they should be forced to do it. And I think that's where I'm at. Like, I think that like if you're a homeless person who's on the street, right there. Like it should
you
like
can't just have them on the street.
Sleeping outside, like unless it's like literal, like, oh, you're out camping somewhere and it's like, permitted. Like, but if you're just like sleeping outside, like as just like a homeless person, like that should be made illegal, quite frankly. That should just be, it should just be illegal. I'm not saying that they should go to jail, but they should be transferred into a facility where they can be cared for. And that should be like a mandatory, involuntary thing that they're forced to do. And it's not a choice because of the fact that these people are out of their minds and they can't oftentimes make a decision of their own will because they're just so out of it. So, yeah. And I think that like, it's kind of emblematic of a lot of the issues the Democratic Party is facing, but I also think that's like early in our conversation, you mentioned that like Democrats are doing terrible in cities, particularly New York, right? Like where Trump made a lot of inroads in those cities. And I think a large part of that is because of the fact that Democratic cities have become basically like symbolic of just like dysfunction, right? Like they basically have become the embodiment of dysfunction. And the dysfunction that people see in cities, they are attributing that to and associating that with the National Democratic brand as a whole, right? Because like think of a Democratic city that's actually run well that you want to live in. There just isn't one at this point. Like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, like all the major Democratic cities are just they're all pieces of shit at this point. They're beautiful places, exactly. And so like that's part of why Trump made so many inroads with voters and also the cultural stuff as well. But like that's one of the main reasons. And I think that and Zohran and guys like that are definitely not the direction I think Democrats should go in if they want to regain the trust of just like normal everyday voters.
I want to respond to Maxi because he's saying these are all right-wing talking points, crime on the subway, go to gated communities, private cars. The ideal is like Europe and Asia now, clean mass transit. Dude, I like clean mass transit. But what we're talking about is I don't think either of us want to have like private gated communities and private security. Like we were both saying that's a bad society. Like we want to have a society where people aren't like walled off like that. And the problem is like when you have insane people walking in the streets and they're on meth and they're just like stabbing people. Like, you're going to get gated communities. You've got to get people avoiding subways and stuff like that. And I want people. I like mass transit. I want it to be clean and nice. If you want it to be clean and nice, you have to address I guess vagrants being criminals. Like, you can't have that.
Yep, 100%. And I in the United States, I'm not sure how this is Australia, but over here in this country, like, we can't. One of the reasons we can't get mass transit is because people don't want to share it with like homeless people and criminals. And so like that's one of the reasons why they won't fund it, is because people actually don't want the mass transit. They don't want like metro stops in their neighborhoods because they don't want like crazy people getting off on their, like stopping.
You know who said this to me? I don't know if you've encountered him on Twitter before, Shag Zadeh. He's actually like a Muslim guy, really smart guy from like Iran. And he hates Zohran, which is really funny. And his whole thing is like, he wants like New York to be like walkable, urban, his whole thing is like walkable urbanism and mass public transport and stuff. But he actually said this to me. He said, we can't have that if you just got like insane people on drugs, like just stabbing people. And I was like, yeah, of course. You actually have to, I think this is the big problem. The Democrats have to provide a base minimum of public order and security for people. Otherwise they're going to go right wing. And it's just like very obvious.
It's also like the one of the reasons why we can't have like density or people, like for example, upzoning in America is also very hard in a lot of places, which is what the book is Abundance touches on. But part of that is because of the fact that when you upzone and you have apartment buildings being built in nice neighborhoods, you make it easier for poor people or lower income people to move in. And obviously progressives and liberals like that because we want to help the lower income and the middle class, which we should. But at the same time, it's like, do you want, because like if the face of like low income and middle class is literally the criminals and the criminal element, you don't want that living next to you. It makes sense.
What I was going to say to you, man, is, what's funny? It's actually the working class communities that are most hurt by crime and all this stuff, right? They're the ones who are being forced to deal with the crazy people on drugs and stuff like that. So like, it's actually like, if you want to help working class communities, one of the most important things is you just provide a bare minimum of public order and safety and stuff like that. Because no one wants to live with the chaos and the anarcho tyranny and stuff like that. People really hate that. And so I think if you're pro working class, you actually have to be tough on crime and stuff like that. And I think that's actually borne out by like, if you actually investigate the cultural attitudes of the working class and stuff like that, these are like not like the people who are all in favor of abolishing the police and all that stuff. Those are kind of like luxury beliefs, right? Like those are not the beliefs that people in working class communities have, because people in working class communities have to deal with like fucking gun violence and horrible crime and stuff like that. It's really like an upper middle class rich person thing, like to have all these sort of luxury beliefs of like, stop crime, like just like decarceration, all this stuff. They're not the ones that have to deal with it, right? Because they can wall themselves off they can literally go and wall themselves off in gated communities.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the argument in the United States that we have where it's like people are like, oh, well, no school choice. Everyone should just be forced to go to like the public schools. Public schools are amazing, but then they send their kids like a $60,000 a year private school. That's kind of the sort of hypocrisy that I think is like with crime, where it's like, oh, you want soft on crime policies, but at the same time, like you live in some sort of like, very nice gated community where, you don't have to like worry about this anyway. And it's just like, I think that what's funny is that Black voters, I think, tend to be one of the most conservative voting blocks when it comes to like crime issues.
And they're against Zohran. Like, I was going to bring this up before because I saw someone comment this, and I also saw this yesterday. It was like, it's like a majority of whites support Zohran in the primary, but then a majority of like minority voters, like African Americans and Hispanics, are against Zohran.
Of course,
It's really interesting.
Because like at the end of the day, the Black Democratic Coalition includes Black conservatives and Black liberals, but Black people culturally are actually pretty center-right, even though we vote for Republicans. It's like a very interesting and strange dynamic that probably people from other countries don't understand. But Black Americans are largely conservative, especially on social issues. And I think that Zohran and a lot of these like progressives, the funny thing is like they keep talking about how much they love like the working class minorities, and then they're going to stand up for all these groups. But it's like the people who are voting for them are like affluent, like white, like college educated, upwardly
Amazing.
mobile, or actually probably sometimes downwardly mobile people went to college but like work at
Yeah,
Starbucks. So like
that's a big one.
it's like it's not like he's getting the votes of like the working class minority groups that he, you know, seems that he maintains that he cares about. Not to say he doesn't care about them. I just think that he doesn't reflect their interests or their actual cultural values, and that's
Yeah.
one of the main issues that progressives have. Like they can't tap into the groups that they claim to care about.
Yeah.
They don't represent them. They don't share their values or their worldview.
This is the funny thing, and I want to maybe we can. I do unfortunately have to head soon, but maybe we can do this as a kind of like last question sort of thing.
Yeah,
'Cause I'm
let's
really
do it.
interested. Like, let's talk a bit about that strange dynamic where it's actually like sort of like white liberals who have the most like progressive opinions. They're the ones who are like, you know, abolish the police and stuff like that. Whereas like it's actually like minority communities actually have much more socially conservative views. Like it's just a really interesting dynamic, and I wonder, like, yeah, if you can talk a little bit more about that, because it is just really interesting.
Well, I think they kind of like touched on it before, where
Yeah,
the reality is that like it's the minority communities, particularly Black communities, that are most afflicted by crime. And
yeah,
so it's easy to say like abolish police when you don't really have much crime happening in your neighborhood. But
absolutely,
when you
yeah.
have drive-by shootings and robberies and battery and all these things happening in your community, vandalism, if you care about your son coming home safe at night, if you care about your store not being broken into and robbed,
Yeah,
you have to care about law and order and police and actually you know, enforcing the law. And a lot of these super soft on crime laws tend to um, give a pass to or coddle criminals, many of whom,
yeah,
unfortunately, are Black criminals, but it comes at the expense of Black law abiding citizens. And so, historically, if you actually, there's
yeah.
actually a really good book about this by James Foreman Jr. called "Locking Up Our Own," which you should definitely read if you get the
Okay,
chance.
I'll actually,
And
I'll
it's
look this up.
about it's basically about the history of tough on crime policies, but like from the Black perspective and how Black people tend to
True.
support those tough on crime policies because
Yeah,
they knew that the criminality came at their expense, and they also viewed the criminals as traitors of their community. They didn't view them as like Black victims; they viewed them as
yeah,
actual traitors of the Black community because they're criminals and they were
and they're
slaughtering and
killing Black
murdering other
people.
Black people. Yes,
Yeah,
so they
exactly.
wanted them to be arrested.
Yeah,
So like it's what the white progressives do is they view Black people as kind of like a kind of consolidated monolithic victim
yeah,
class. And so because of that,
yeah,
they think that treating the Black criminal the same way as you treat the Black law-abiding citizen, treating them the same as they're both victims and they both deserve a pass for their behavior. Like I said, it empowers the Black criminal. I think the one
yeah,
thing also is just like how how these sorts of elite college educated environments tend to talk a lot about poor people, minorities, and things like that without actually interacting with those groups
yeah.
that much. So like you kind of have this sort of like caricature in your own head of what these groups actually are, but they aren't like actually reflective of who those groups are. One thing I find fascinating is that the Black people who actually get to be on television who speak for the Black community, like Nicole Hannon Jones and stuff like that, these are
Yeah.
people who like went to college, they're college educated, they usually live in affluent communities, they went to like, Harvard Law, Yale Law, like they have like very elite backgrounds, but they are actually tapped and put on like MSNBC, CNN,
Yeah.
ABC to be so-called representatives, quote unquote, of the Black community when it's like they effectively live in this very elite majority white world where they talk to
Yeah.
these like elite white people on behalf of Black people. But what they don't understand or grasp is that they have probably more culturally in common with those like white
Yeah.
college
Interesting.
educated people than they have like working class Black people. Working class Black people don't get to go on like
NBC.
cable news and like talk
Mm.
and make a pitch for their community. It's like the Black people who like went to like all the Ivy League schools and have
Yeah.
something in common and can communicate with like white progressives in their own language. So To me, that's what it is. Like, it's like, I think that Black people don't have like really great representatives in the media. Our representatives are people who I think are trying to get clout for themselves. And so they're, like you said, it's a luxury belief. It's like, you want these sorts of like hyper idealistic delusional policies that you're going to shift the burden of that onto poor working class Black people, while you get to vacation in Martha's Vineyard with other Black elites by laundering our reputation to like white like progressives. So that's basically what that is. That's my spiel about it. I'm very against progressivism. Yeah. At least a modern iteration of progressivism. Like, I'm progressive in some ways.
So I don't know. Would you define yourself as a Democrat at the end of the day, but one who's against progressivism, or how would you define yourself?
You know, I am like kind of figuring that out. Like, I don't have a label. You know, I would say that first off, I'm a journalist, so I'm not even technically allowed to have a political party. He's a public one, but I would say, like, you know, I am just like. Okay, so I support abundance. Like, that's kind of my politics right now. The book Abundance.
Yeah, like, I like abundance. I like
that. I live in a city where like it's incredibly expensive. I don't know where you live in Australia, but
it's bad here too. Like, the rental vacancy rate in Brisbane, which is my city, the biggest city in Australia, rental vacancy is 0.8%. So it's a huge part of it is zoning, and so yeah, I love abundance. I love the YIMBY mindset. I think in Australia, it's also part of the equation is that we've had like a huge amount of migration over the past couple of years that has massively increased demand to the point that, like, I'm not sure even if we did do full YIMBY policies, we could keep up with the current rate. So I guess like my sort of personal approach would be like slightly lower demand by slightly lowering migration while also doing YIMBY policies, boosting supply. But in general though, I do really like abundance. I do really like it.
Yeah, I'm a pragmatist. So like my politics are, I'm a pragmatist. Like I want there to be more homes. I want there to be like more of everything. So like prices come down. I support, you know, sensible, like, you know, criminal laws. I'm probably more tough on crime now than I have ever been.
Me too, honestly.
You know, I have become more hawkish on foreign policy. I think we should be involved in the world. I'm a free market guy, generally speaking. I generally believe that we should have, I do support like universal healthcare kind of like option in the United States. I'm not sure how, because like I think that in America, like our system isn't great, but at the same time, I think that I don't want scarcity of healthcare. So there has to be like a more sensible way of doing it than just like single payer within the United States. So like I support that. I think that we need to, I think that I'm someone who, I don't know, like I'm very skeptical of like transgender stuff right now. That's like my one social issue. Like I'm very kind of conservative. Like I think if you're trans,
gone really far left on it.
I think that, like, for example, you deserve protection in like housing, not full stop.
Yeah,
you should be fired from your job for being trans. Like, no one should be able to mess with you that. I just think that like if you're the idea that like minors can transition and go through like those hormone therapies when it's like all experimental. And in Europe, they have like studies saying that this is a bunch of bullshit and you shouldn't be doing that. To me, the fact that it's so in America, there's a lot of censorship over that topic because you can't really discuss it. And they are pushing it as if it's like basically gospel. Like, so I've become very conservative on that. And like Democrats have gone they've gone like 100% full in on the trans stuff, which I think is dangerous. So like I'm very, and I also think that particularly in sports, I don't think that trans athletes should be like women's sports. So that's kind of like where I am like conservative am on. And I don't know, I think that's kind of like where I don't like being tone police or language police or anything. I fully
agree with you.
Yeah, and so like that's kind of like where I am on that. But like I would say like,
it's funny because I think we actually see very similarly on a lot of issues. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like maybe we were like, you know, separate brothers and like, I don't know, we were like separated at birth or something, but like we have similar worldviews. But it's just like I view like I'm just like very, very pragmatic. And I don't know, I think that I want things that actually like work. And I feel like as someone who like grew up, I'm from Chicago, which is like 99% liberal. And so I grew up in a city where like I do have a lot of liberal cultural values, and that like I'm accepting of a lot of different kinds of people, and I think that we should live in a world that's accommodating to a lot of different kinds of people.
Yeah.
But I'm also just like, and I'm also just like not. I don't like religious conservatism at all, and those people, I hate those people. Oh, I shouldn't. I don't hate anyone. I can't get in trouble. I shouldn't say I hate anyone. But I am skeptical of hyper-religious conservatism, evangelicalism in the United States. But at the same time, I'm someone who believes that we. I don't know. I'm very secular. But I'm still like culturally conservative in some way. So yeah, I'm all over the map. Like I've done like the political compass test, and I always end up literally. It's so funny. Like my dot is always like literally right in the middle of like the compass. So like I don't have a political party. I don't fit in anywhere. So like it depends on which issue annoys me the most at the moment, or what's most important to me, and that's what I'm on. Yes,
I do agree with that, and it's funny. Like I've got my like nice like orthodox icons here and stuff like that. But like when it comes to politics, though, I'm pretty secular. Like I don't like fundamentalism. I don't like people like trying to like force religious supremacy on other people and stuff like that. Whether that's Islam or Christianity or ultra orthodox Jewish religion, Hindu extremism. Like I just don't like extremism from religion in general. Seriously,
me neither. It's terrible.
Yeah. But we've got a comment here. What are you talking about? Who is silencing you? The entire Republican Party is obsessed with gold. That said, though, like I remember there was like one singular Democratic rep who said after the election loss that I think all he said was that like maybe we shouldn't have transgender women in sports, and then his like staff like did like a full his staff like fully rebelled against him, and like there was a lot of talk of primary him and stuff like that. So like I don't know, like
is it South Moulton?
Like, what do you say? Sorry.
Is this South Moulton you're talking about?
I'm not sure the name of it, but he was like, I think it was from like Rhode Island maybe or whatever. It was like a Democratic congressman who just said like, yeah, maybe we went too far on trans issues, and then there was like hardcore backlash against him within the Democratic Party. So I feel like it's pretty hard to say in the Democratic Party like maybe we should moderate on cultural issues, and I think like I think they have to moderate on some cultural issues in order to get back, because my sense is like Trump is such a disaster. He's doing so many bad things that like if you have to moderate on some cultural issues, you'd have to say, okay, like no, like you have to say like, well, kids can't transition when they're fucking 10. Like I think I don't want Trump to get in. So simple, right? I don't know. My stance is that. I think that there's a lot of people who've grown up and then they wanted to reverse their transition. They can't do that. Like it's very hard when you're talking about kids doing such a massive medical procedure. So yeah,
and so I just looked it up. You're talking about Seth Moulton. He's from Massachusetts, and he he basically said he doesn't want boys and girls sports. I wouldn't want my daughter playing against a boy, and I think that sparked a lot of outrage, and they basically forced him to walk it back.
And they wanted his staff rebelled.
But the thing is that like he's largely basically correct, even if you don't like the way he said it. But I also think the way he said it is quite frankly the way that most people would say it, that they don't want a boy playing in girl sports. But I think that Republicans can talk how normal people talk. Democrats have to talk the way that special interest groups force them to talk.
The activist class.
So like because of that, like they're very handicapped whenever it comes to discussing these cultural issues, because they're just always at odds with like what the public supports, or like if they can talk about it, like they get a list of words they can't say, and that's just not the way that Republicans operate. But no, like I think it is like one of those like 80-20 issues where it's like it's just, I mean, listen, in my belief is just like if you look at the science behind it, it's just straight up not fair. But I think the Democrats have decided, because of special interest groups, that like the feelings of trans athletes and trans people feeling like they're included, that matters more than biological cisgender women being able to have fair competitions, and also like places where they can like change in private. And I just think that considering that women are like 50% of the population, and then also the men who have women in their lives and care about those women as well, men, fathers who have daughters. Like it's such a niche issue that like you just
it's
can't.
like literally 80%. It's like literally 80% of people disagree with you, and it's just like
Yeah,
it's
so
just crazy.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like I think that like if they were willing to moderate on some of the cultural issues, gender, and also including race and a lot of that stuff, and then also even the economic issues, which are like radical. Like I think a lot of people don't understand. Like a lot of working class people are like they understand that their life is kind of crappy. But one thing I've learned in working in politics is interesting is like people, even though they acknowledge that their life is crappy, they don't necessarily think that they don't deserve those things, which is interesting. What I've learned because like a lot of people who within the United States, I don't know how it's in Australia, but in the United States, what's fascinating is that, for example, things like people will be deep into debt, like they'll be deep in medical debt, they'll be deep into student debt, and you would think that they would jump at the opportunity to have that debt forgiven, but they'll vote against that and be like, no, I don't think our debt should be forgiven. I just I took off these loans, or they think that like they don't want to be given something because. Yeah, because they don't want to be given something because they also think that other people would benefit that don't deserve that benefit.
That's a mega thing that I really don't like. The kind of crab in the bucket type mentality where it's like my life's shit, but I want other people's life to be worse. Like that does seem to be like a hardcore Trump thing, and like I think that shit it sucks. Like there was a lot of that over the tariff stuff where they were like, we know that this is going to make us worse off, but like as long as like the libs are like getting trolled, I'm happy. And like that's just retarded to me. So that is a big problem, I think, in America. Yeah, I mean it does exist in Australia too, but I think that does seem to be something more in America.
Yes. I agree 100%. And I think that it's like a major roadblock and impediment if your goal is to implement these sorts of like populist policies where you think that you can unite a so-called mythical working class together. Not that the working class stuff is mythical, but like the idea that they're like a united front is completely mythical. That you can unite this mythical working class coalition together and to take on the so-called oligarchs. Like these are people who have very different ideas of what they deserve and what is good policy than what you do. Which is why people like Trump can win and why Elon Musk for a while was popular with them, right? Like a lot of people actually do like billionaires. Like it's a thing. Like not, I mean, like they do. Like they view it as like aspirational, right? Like they view the billionaires as aspirational. They view people like Musk and Bezos. They don't view them as like robber barons. Like they view them as people who've like earned their wealth, and that like that's cool. Like you should want to be like the Mark Zuckerberg or whatever. It's like that was like a thing that
way.
Yeah, and so it's like
I think there are some parasitic billionaires. Like I think what Elon was doing with Doge was just like fucking psycho. Like the way that they were like cutting programs for like the poorest people in the entire world, like foreign aid and stuff like that. Like when he's literally the richest guy, it's pretty sick. So I think there are definitely some parasitic billionaires, but like there are also other ones who like, I mean, they did build things and people see it as aspirational.
I mean, my belief is that like I'm not going to say any billionaire quote unquote doesn't deserve their money. There's probably some who don't, but I also think that like if you built a company or you took certain financial risk and you are like, I don't have an issue with billionaires like existing like in very kind of like general abstract sense.
When I was a socialist, when I was like, I used to get around that. Sorry to cut you off. I was just going to say, like, I used to get around that idea when I was like 20 and I was like a socialist. And I loved burning stuff. I used to get around the idea that like every single billionaire was a policy failure. And then now I look at it, I'm like, a lot of these people are like billionaires on paper because they own stock in companies they founded. Like, why would you be like, okay, you founded a successful company, you have stock in it, you have to fucking sell it off. Like, it's a bit silly to be like unrealized capital gains make you automatically evil. Like I think it basically depends on like what you're doing in the world, right? Like you don't just automatically become evil because you founded a popular company and you have like 40% stock in it, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on board with you. Like I don't think that you automatically become evil because you cross a certain net worth threshold, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that like after you do get a certain amount of wealth, I do think science backs this up. that you do kind of like lose empathy, and you
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
do develop like a sense of like megalomania because of the fact
Yeah,
that like you gain enough money that you kind of almost get like this god complex. Like that is like
yeah. I think
a
people will
sort
have that for
of
sure.
yeah, that is like a sort of phenomenon that has been observed
Yeah,
within Paul with it, it's been observed, right? So like my belief
yeah,
here is largely just that like it's not like I'm not gonna say I condone it or anything like that. Um I don't have the issue of rich people existing. I don't think that rich people are inherently evil, but I do think that like when it comes to politics in general, it's a miscalculation to assume that people are against the ruling class because there's a lot of people who aspire to be a part of the ruling class. Like not everyone wants to tear down the existing hierarchies. Like a lot of people like the hierarchy. They just want to like climb the hierarchy, right? Um, and so like it's a fascinating. And I think that's one of the issues leftists kind of have is like they assume that their worldview is just something that everyone shares. Not everyone shares either that worldview, or they even if they do, I mean, like they don't share that worldview, they don't share that
yeah,
vision of society.
yeah.
And a lot of times it's the poor people, like who, and ironically,
It's
it's
not
like the
necessarily
affluent.
self-consciousness, you know.
Yeah, it's the
A lot of them, like,
college-educated
they love that
yuppies.
much.
Sorry.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
love
in
that idea that
America,
they have self-consciousness.
yeah, our unions actually in America, our auto unions are actually, I think at this point, like half of them are like literally college-educated kids who don't actually work in like factory plants. They just like get a union membership because they want to cosplay as like factory workers.
Yeah.
Like it's actually very funny.
Gee, it's so strange. By the way, the reason why I put the reason why I had that, people might ask why I had that um sorry, hang on. Why is this happening? Sorry.
Yeah,
The
of
people might
course.
wonder why I had the Ta-Nehisi quotes tweet up for so long. The reason I had that up was I was going to respond to your point earlier when you were talking about like people from the black community who are actually like nevertheless like quite economically well off, and like they have like sort of like luxury beliefs and stuff like that, and like I don't think like I think like the vast majority of like African Americans when they saw 9/11 did not have a similar reaction to Ta-Nehisi quotes, like it's pretty nuts. Like I think he's a really
No.
good example of what you're talking about.
Well, I actually faintly remember 9/11 because I was so young when it happened. But like, what I do remember is like my mother was like sobbing when that
Oh, you had
happened.
family or wait, sorry, what did you say? You
Um,
said family
I
or
just I remember when 9/11 happened, and I was so young
oh
that I
yeah.
didn't really
Oh
grasp
yeah.
the magnitude of it. I was
Yeah.
probably like
Yeah, I get you.
5. But like I remember my mother was like sobbing when 9/11 happened. She was like, I think everyone was
Right.
just like horrified. And it was at the
Yeah.
one 9/11 was terrible, but the one, I guess if you can call it a silver lining, um, we didn't view ourselves as like, white American or black American or Hispanic or whatever.
Yeah,
Like
there was a
everyone
lot
was
of
just like an
unity.
American. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like we were all unified in that moment, and it was an incredibly like patriotic time to be an American right after 9/11.
And
And
then these types of guys, Ta-Nehisi codes, like it's just like I think I put it in the comments, but I just said like it's basically just like seminal rite of passage for like a leftist intellectual in America to just like say something stupid about 9/11, just be like, oh yeah, the real 9/11 is like just like America being racist or whatever, and then just everyone has to clap them and give them a Pulitzer Prize and shit. I don't know why it is. It's just this like self-hatred. It's like the same mindset that brought Hasan to do the same thing. It's just this self-hatred thing.
yeah, it's just kind of like wild to say like you saw 9/11 happening and you felt absolutely nothing. He has like a wild worldview, which was reflected in his new book, The Message, which I
Yeah,
actually,
the Hamas stuff, which was horrible. It was just fucking mental. I got to find that as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And so like it's yeah, like I just think these like so like these like leftist intellectuals are just like so like way into like the weeds in regards to like they're just like
This
out
was
there.
really embarrassing. This one was so embarrassing when he basically was saying like he might not have been. We can watch it back quickly.
And having said
Maybe this can be our last segment because I do have
Sure.
to go, unfortunately. And I'm also conscious of how late it is for you guys over there. But
this out loud, but I think about it a lot. Where 20 years old, born into Gaza, which is a giant open air jail. And what I mean by that is if my father is a fisherman and he goes too far out into the sea, he might get shot by somebody off of, the side of Israeli boats. If my mother picks the olive trees and she gets too close to the wall, she might be shot. If my little sister has, cancer and she needs treatment because there are no, facilities to do that in Gaza and I don't get the right permits, she might die. And I grow up under that oppression and that poverty and the wall comes down. Am I also strong enough or even constructed in such a way where I say, this is too far? I don't know that I am.
Dude, it's so
I don't know that I am.
Like it's so bullshit because like we both know what he's eliding there is like the very crucial fact that it wasn't just the wall coming down; it was also like literally a massacre. Like it's such a sneaky thing they do on their part where it's like, oh, it was just the wall finally came down. It's like, no, that's not what we're talking about. Like we're talking particularly about like Hamas going house to house, shooting people in the head and shooting dogs.
Yeah,
and
I think like the left likes to compare it to like the Haitian rebellion or Haitian revolution, which obviously like the Haitians were enslaved and they basically massacred and killed every white person on the island of Haiti. And I think that that's the comparison that they want to make. I've been to pro-Palestine protests to cover them as a reporter since October 7th, and they constantly make that comparison. They compare themselves like John Brown or compare themselves to Jean Louviere or Nat Turner. I just think
compared to Haiti, I want to say that like compared to Haiti is like pretty fucking scary considering like that did involve like mass murder. Like they're saying like this is going to be like Haiti, like are they basically saying like if they win?
If you want to talk about the Haitian rebellion, they were justified in killing every slave owner and everyone that like perpetuated their immiseration and their persecution and their oppression. They weren't justified in killing like every woman and child and every innocent.
I mean, that's the
white person.
They killed literally.
But I also think that they were like an enslaved people, and like that's different than Gaza. But regardless, my thing is that like it's also just reflective of how historically illiterate he is, because the thing is that the reason why October 7th happened is because Iran, right, which is the chief sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East, basically told and they instructed Hamas, and they planned with Hamas to do this on October 7th because their goal was to derail the normalization agreements and negotiation between Israel and Saudi Arabia, because they know that if Israel and Saudi Arabia actually do normalize, that's basically game over for the Palestinian cause, and it's also game over. It's also like they form a massive bulwark against Iran's aspirations towards Islamic supremacy. It's a massive alliance, military front, because Israel is the only military in the Middle East that can take on Iran. And so that's what October 7th was about. It wasn't about these so-called like romanticized notions of like Palestinian resistance and like helping the Palestinians like liberate themselves and things like that. That's not what that was like. Well, that's not what that was about literally whatsoever. It literally was a premeditated effort to derail the Abraham Accords, right? That's what that was about. It wasn't about this nonsense. And the thing is that Ta-Nehisi Coates doesn't actually study any of these issues in depth. Like he went to Israel like maybe like a 2-week vacation, in which he went. I think it was around 2 weeks, with people that were entirely pro-Palestinian. They gave him their version of events, their interpretation of history. He's not interacting with any pro-Israel people. They gave him another insider, their vision of the history. And he basically wrote, like I said, his view is entirely skewed in the pro-Palestine direction. And you can be pro-Palestine, that's fine, but like he doesn't attempt to even interact with or even engage with the pro-Israel argument, pro-Israel side. So to me personally,
he literally said, like it's not worth it for me like to even talk to someone like who's a Zionist or something like that.
Yeah, like that's the thing. That's the thing. Like he keeps making the comparisons and projecting American race issues onto this, basically saying like, oh, he
Yeah.
doesn't want to hear that it's like complicated, or he doesn't want to hear any of those things because like, oh, they said that ending slavery was complicated, ending Jim Crow was complicated, so I don't want to hear that. It's like, dude, like I'm black too. Like, please do not insult. Like you're making our entire community look bad because your refusal to actually intellectually engage with complex geopolitical issues and actually use like reason and debate and like knowledge and actually actually analyze this topic with the level of precision that it deserves. Like your refusal to actually even go in depth on this, it's like I don't know, like it's embarrassing, right? Like it's embarrassing that this is kind of the person that is propped up as this sort of like black thought leader. Like he's not actually like giving much analysis. Like he's just like moralizing. Anyone can do that, and I think that like it's funny because like this book came out like October of like last year. Like it hasn't really. I mean, yeah, it sold some copies, but like it hasn't like made the cultural kind of splash that he wanted to make, like, because it's not, we're not really talking about it. I mean, he wrote The Case for Reparations, and that kicked off in liberal circles this whole like, I mean, to this day we're still debating reparations. And by the way, that's another one of my politics. We should not have reparations. It's a stupid idea. I'm anti-reparations.
It just poisons everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, he mainstreamed the debate on reparations, and I think he wants to mainstream the pro-Palestine debate within liberal circles. He's failed to do so, thankfully, because it's a stupid debate.
Yeah, look. I was going to say as well, like, it's one of the things that's amazing, right? Is like he talks about Israel as like the most evil place in the world and like the most oppressive place in the world, but like he ultimately, at the end of the day, got a visa to go to Israel. Like, dude, I'm a critic of the Chinese government. I can't go to China. They just wouldn't let me in. So it's very strange, right? Like I mean, he's able to say Israel's the most evil place in the world, but like he can, at the end of the day, he can get a visa to go to Israel and do this 2-week reporting trip or whatever. His argument would be that the morality of the occupation is wrong no matter what, and making it more complicated is just muddying the waters. I mean, yeah, but like, dude, I mean, how can you just not talk about the historical context at all? Like, it's just, when you fail to do that, you just can't even have a conversation.
Well, he doesn't even mention that. For example, Jordan controlled the West Bank, right? Like Jordan controlled the West Bank.
Exactly.
And they didn't give them the Palestinian date then.
And when they were in control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem, they banned Jews from East Jerusalem. They just they scorched and they burned down all these synagogues. They banned Jews from praying at the Western Wall for like 20 years. Like that was a real apartheid type system, right? So it's just there's so much nuance and historical context that's just like completely lost and just vanishes into the ether when this conflict comes up. And it's just it's actually like sad how bad the actual takes are on all this stuff.
Yeah, and I would say like I do plan on going to Israel soon. I actually one of my friends I've never been. I actually do want to go. I need to go because I write about it. But one of my friends went to Israel, and she basically got to go into the West Bank, and she told me that in the West Bank, the whole debate around settlements is just so like skewed because like there's so much land in the West Bank that for miles and miles and miles you just see that there's nothing there, particularly in Area C where most of the Israeli settlements are. I think that it's a more complex and nuanced debate. Generally speaking, I'm not one of these people who believes that like West Bank settlements somehow make it impossible for the...
I just want to say to Max, you haven't been to Israel either, and also I've never described myself as an expert on Israel. I'm just somebody who is an informed observer who's read a lot of books on the subject, and I just offer my thoughts, and people can reject them or take them as they go. I'm not saying that I'm like literally the world expert on Israel Palestine. But yeah, sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, so like my general belief is that like you can't really like look at this and decide. Like for example, I'm not one of these people who believes that like Israeli settlements in the West Bank means that there's not going to be a Palestinian state. I think that like in any case where there's a Palestinian state, if they were to broker that agreement, there probably would be land swaps because of the fact that those settlements are there, or they would just they would hand the settlements over to the Palestinians, and they could be Jewish settlements on Palestinian land, which I actually don't think there's anything wrong with, because like, there's Arabs that live in Israel, like there's Muslims that live in Israel. like there could be Jews that live in Palestine, and it could just be Jewish settlements or enclaves within Palestine. So like I don't know, like
Thanks for joining, mate.
yeah, I'm not gonna say that I am someone that supports settlements, because I do think that they just like create a much more messy, muddier situation over there than it should be. But I also don't agree with the Ta-Nehisi Coates argument that like it's like an occupation that is,
that's equivalent
easy
to like
solve.
say like apartheid South Africa.
Yeah, but it's also just like one thing that Coates doesn't touch on is that yes, Israel has a military presence in the West Bank. That is deeply regrettable. With that said, Israel also left Gaza. After Israel left Gaza, Hamas was elected in government, and Hamas then proceeded to launch missiles into southern Israel. If, let's say, Israel were to vacate the West Bank, okay, and there is a vacuum, who's to say there's not another Palestinian, basically Iranian financed terrorist group that then starts launching missiles directly into Jerusalem, directly into Tel Aviv, and also Ben Gurion Airport, all of which is in close proximity to the West Bank. So like it's one of those things where like I don't think that's particularly going to like it would be a never-ending security nightmare. So like I don't know. I'm of the belief that I don't know how you make that work. I think that there would have to be some security agreements there. But like I said, Ta-Nehisi Coates is someone who doesn't actually engage with this debate at all. Yeah,
absolutely. I was going to quickly say, like, there was this lady in Australia. She's a Rhodes Scholar. She's actually roughly my age. Her name's Yasmin Poole, and she had a like sort of slam poem that she read out at a Nakba rally, and it was about like it's about like it was about like the apartheid walls, like the walls that surround the West Bank and stuff like that. And I was like, how like young children are. Hang on, let me bring this up on the stream. It's actually this could be like the last thing we can talk about because it's it was a good one. Hang on, where is this? She's like a Rhodes Scholar and she's like supported October 7 and everything. I'm losing my mind. Like my.
I think I've seen this girl before.
Yeah. So she is a Rhodes Scholar, and like the Australian progressive media always have her on as like the voice of the youth. So like she's presented as like the leader of I guess like Australian Gen Z, and she was describing like seeing a young Palestinian boy holding a toy gun next to the Israeli wall, and how the wall represents that it's subhuman and all this stuff. And I just noted like, why do the walls exist? Like the wall exists in the West Bank because there were like 150 separate suicide bombing attacks during the Second Intifada, killed 1,000 Israelis. Like what government wouldn't build a wall in that context, right? It's just like
able to go to a refugee camp next to the wall, and I saw a young boy, a young Palestinian boy, holding a large plastic gun. I realized that his entire life he has only known life next to a wall that his people did not construct. A wall that says that they are subhuman, a wall that denies their full humanity. Of course he would be angry, and of course that is the only thing he's seen. Violence from the IDF and violence from settlers against his people. That young boy looked like my brother, and I thought that could be me, that could be us. And I was able to visit the Palestinian village of Susia, Palestinians who were expelled from their land a couple of decades ago. They'd received funding from European aid agencies and were building a temporary community center, but they were only able to construct it at night under a tarp.
It gets a lot more
in the sunlight, settlers would tear it down. Aid agencies know about this, but they did not stand up and say something. The women in Susia told me, we don't need money for bread or food or water. We need political power. We need you to amplify our voice. And that is exactly what we are doing today. After I saw
the really
genocide and the apartheid for myself, I initially felt devastated and I thought, how could Australia have done this? But the more I thought about it, the less surprised I was. Because when I saw Israel and when I went to the West Bank, I realized that this is an early stage of Australia. And the same privilege that ripped Aboriginal children out of the beds of their families' homes is the same privilege that is allowing the genocide in Gaza to occur.
She says this white Australia. She said like the same white hen that sent the white Australia visa. Like, dude, it's like crazy because it's like, again, it just doesn't engage with the fact that like half of the Israeli Jewish population is descended from groups of Jews who were living in the Middle East and North Africa and were just completely ethnically cleansed from their homes. And like, they were not Ashkenazi Jews, they were not European Jews, like they were Middle Eastern Jews that were ethnically cleansed from their homes. And she's saying like, oh, this is literally the exact same as white Australia and the genocide of Aboriginals and stuff like that. And Max goes, Drew the leftists making fun of oppressed people. I'm not making fun of oppressed people. I just, all I'm saying is it's a very complex situation. You can't just say, oh, it's the exact same as white Australia. And you can't just say, oh, the wall exists because they think that Palestinians are subhumans. Like, the wall came up because there were 150 suicide bombing attacks during the Second Intifada. And we can actually ask, like, that is a political, like the choice by Hamas and the PLO to carry out 150 different suicide bombing attacks in Israel during the Second Intifada. That was a political choice they made. It didn't just like emerge out of the ether. Like, they sat down, they thought, let's do suicide bombing attacks against civilians. Let's do this during the Second Intifada. It was a political plan, right? And we can criticize that as a political plan because the outcome was it empowered the Israeli far right. It killed a lot of civilians. It was horrible. It empowers the Israeli far right. And then Israel responds to 150 suicide bombing attacks by building walls. And if you don't want the walls to happen, then you could ask, well, please don't do the suicide bombing attacks. I don't know. It's just so much more infinitely complex than this whole debate. Like,
the same privilege that denies Palestinians from going through their own community, their own land, the same administrative forces that denies them from seeing the sea is the same white hand that stamped the rejection on the application of a person of color with brown skin because of the white Australia policy. They are the same.
It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Like,
if you have suffered or lost your job,
it's so bizarre to be like, this is Australia. And like, this is what she posted. I remember I never used to be against this girl. I actually met her one time. She was at the Oxford Union when I spoke at the Oxford Union. I thought she was fine. I thought she was actually a cool person. But then I remember on October 8th, this is what she posted. And like, after that, I was like, my God, like, this is really extreme. She posted like, do you support decolonization as an abstract academic theory or as a tangible event? So October 7th for her is, decolonization as a tangible event. It's like, that's sick, dude. That's sick.
That's
like,
just disqualifying. Like, why is someone like this even allowed in like
she used to be like held up as like if you go like on Instagram, like there's like all photos, there's like photos of her with like the Australian Prime Minister and stuff like that. So she was literally invited to be basically the voice of young Australians at like a young person summit that the Prime Minister held. And where's this Prime Minister thing? When 23-year-old Yasmin Poole bumped into 59-year-old Albanese at the tea end, the Prime Minister did something young people may not accustomed to when meeting elder statesmen. He mainly listened. So it's like she was like held up as like the voice of the youth in Australia, right? And then she's out here then saying like October 7 is a real life example of decolonization and we want to decolonize Australia. And it's like, oh, that's kind of pretty extreme to me. Like pretty extreme to me to say like October 7 is something we want to do in Australia too. And it's a great moment in history. It's like, it depresses me that this is my generation, dude. And like, these are the people that are held up as like our progressive voices. It's like, dude, I was never like it's so funny because I had all these people go like, oh, Drew must have been paid off by the Zionists. Cause like, I was never like, really involved in like commenting on Middle Eastern politics before any of this. But it was really just like seeing people that were like my friends at university and stuff like that. And all these young people, progressives and stuff like that, responding in this way. And because what happened, dude, is like when it happened, I was on Twitter and I was scrolling and I could see the photos of like, do you remember that photo from October 7 when it's just all the elderly elderly grandmothers that were just stacked, like their bodies were piled up at the bus stop where Hamas had gone past the bus stop with all these elderly Jewish grandmothers and just shot it up? Like I saw stuff like that and I just couldn't compute, right? Like I couldn't compute that image in my mind next to like, for example, that girl Yasmin who's like held up as like, you know, the voice of young progressive Australians by like these, you know, the ABC, which is our public broadcaster, our equivalent of the BBC, they gave her a documentary on like young people. And like, she was like the documentary host on about like, you know, young progressive and stuff like that. And I just couldn't compute that, like the image in my mind of just like the corpses of elderly grandmothers stacked up, piled next to a bus stop in Israel because Hamas had shot up a bus stop. I couldn't compute that image next to Yasmin Poole then saying, this is decolonization as a tangible event, not just abstract theory. I'm just like, my God, like if this is what people mean by decolonization, like, I'm sorry, I'm against you. It's just like sick, right? That's how I came to this issue, right? Like,
I mean, I agree with you that it's sick, but I also think that you're being a little too like gracious towards the people that made those comments. I do think that they support the mass slaughter of people in Israel. I think that they do. I mean, they said they supported it on October 8th. They said that it's like a decolonization thing, and I think that that's part of the issue with decolonizing. I think October 7th really red pilled me on this, where like I just no longer.
Yeah, dude, same with me.
Like
same with me, right?
I just don't believe in it as an academic theory. I think that this anti-Western stuff, pro-decolonization stuff, is sick, and it pushes us to support radical jihadist terrorism. Because like if you are raised to believe that the West is bad and it's irredeemable. And the only way it can probably be redeemed is through basically supporting terrorist acts and terrorists and things like that. Then you're opening the door. I mean, they were going to be supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and the people who want to kill us and destroy our way of life. And I just listen. It killed
me too. I didn't understand it.
And so I think that we need to get rid of these disciplines. At least within American colleges. I mean, I would probably say, I mean, I've never been to Australia, but like I would assume that Australia probably should just. Yeah, I mean, I think that they need to get rid of it. Australia, the UK, Canada, because at the end of the day, it's like a lot of these immigrants, they bring these grievances with them, and the academic, like making this into mainstream academia, putting it in mainstream academia, I think has allowed it to like fester and grow its roots out. And you get stuff like this where people are openly supporting terrorism against American allies and terrorism, quite frankly, against the United States, where like I wouldn't be shocked if we have a terror attack in this country and then you have like snarky college kids being like, oh, well, that's decolonization, or that's what we get for supporting the Gaza genocide or whatever. So like that's basically like what I think like we've poisoned ourselves by allowing this stuff to and in many cases endorsing. Yeah, and so like personally, like
all this Fanon stuff where it's like we get back our dignity by like slaughtering like the colonizer and stuff like that. Like it is so poisonous, dude. And I just fully agree with you about like October 7 being red pilling on this stuff, because it was like I saw literally people who I thought were my friends and like progressive friends and stuff like that post stuff going like, this is what decolonization looks like. And I just was like, straight up, okay, if that's what decolonization looks like, I don't support it. Sorry. Like it just straight up, I just don't support it. If that's what you mean by decolonization, just going out and shooting grandmas in the street, sorry, I'm against you. And that's like, it was like a visceral reaction, right? So all these people thought like, oh, the Zionists got to Drew and they paid him off or whatever. It's like, no, I just didn't like people that I thought were on my side, like other progressives or whatever, just saying, yeah, this is awesome. Let's go kill grandmas. I was like, no, this is fucking sick.
Yes, and I think that's basically like where I'm at, where it's like I don't know, like I feel like I have like a lot less patience for this stuff now than I think I used to, largely because I acknowledge our sins as a nation. That does not mean that I think that somehow like jihadist groups that are literally being financed by Iran have some sort of like moral high ground that we all need to like be deferential to. And I think that's kind of like what we're seeing, is that this propaganda that the West in America is bad, but then and also Australia is bad because you guys have your own history, that you guys have done some unfortunate things as well. But then at the same time, we also are like
they want to destroy everything.
Yeah. So it's like, I want to improve America. I don't want to destroy America and turn it into like Saudi Arabia. But I do think that it seems to me that a lot of the progressives on the left want to do that. They want to turn us into that. And so I'm really against them. But I hate this because like I also am against like the radical right wing as well, like the Marjorie Taylor Greene
of
people
course,
and
yeah.
stuff, and they're getting more popular. So like I don't know, like I'm just against like everyone. I just hope that like
Are you?
Democrats hope they.
You know how they want to, you know how they say like Turtle Island and stuff like that? How like they call America like an
Oh
occupied
yeah,
country and like this
yeah.
stuff just really turned me against them because they actually straight up say this stuff. They say abolish every settler colony and then just conveniently it's every Western country or whatever. Like and they just go abolish America, abolish Australia, abolish like I don't know like Israel as well. Like it's just like they were saying like even Irish people were like genocidal colonizers on Turtle Island. It's like what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's just mental. It's just so mental. Like they just want to kill us. They seriously want to kill us. I think like a lot of them do. I want to try to find one of these ones. There was someone who brought a flag to so we every January 26th we have Australia Day in Australia, and it's a controversial date because it coincides with the day that Captain Cook first came to Australia, like the British explorer. And like all these people then started making like there's been marches and marches and marches for years. It's a big cultural issue in Australia where people basically say change the date because the date right now represents the day Australia was colonized. But it's subtly shifted in recent years where it's no longer change the date. They actually say straight up abolish Australia. And I want to quickly bring up some of these like fucking crazy things that I've just like collected over the years, right? Because it does exist. These people actually like exist. They have these views. I just want to quickly show, right? Like, look at this, like this sort of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like dead colonizers harm no one, abolish Australia together, and like, it's like I want to try find. There's a lot of stuff like abolish Australia, all this stuff, and I wanted to try find where people bring these flags and it's like abolish Israel, abolish America, all this shit at the same time. And they really see it as like a unified sort of thing. They basically think like every Western country should just be destroyed. And it's just horrible. It's absolutely
well. That's
horrible.
like the thing. Like Israel is like the first on the chopping block, but like that's kind of like an entry point for them. Like they want to destroy Israel, but they also want to destroy other Western countries as well. I think that those would be a lot harder. I don't see any pathway to really destroy America or Canada or the UK, but they do want to destroy us, probably from within through radical jihadism and Islamicizing those countries, which would effectively destroy them anyway. But I think that that's basically what their pathway is and what they're trying to do. And I think that basically what we see here, like I said, is an attempt to destroy the West or try to delegitimize the West through the destruction of Israel. And that I think that that's important to remember.
This is such a good example of this, right? Like she goes, hang on, I'm trying to fix it. Yeah, she goes, I don't consider myself like.
And Canada is a white supremacist, colonial, racist project, as is Israel, as is the state of Israel. So I don't even consider myself to be a Canadian because this is indigenous land and this land is occupied. So
you ask them what they mean by that, and like it's a call for it's literally a call for destruction, right? It's like, and it's just like, I'm sorry, you can't live in the West if that's what your view is, right? It's just disaster, such a disaster. I think that's such a good example of that mindset where it's just like Israel, Canada is a white supremacist project. Everything has to be abolished. It's just so unhinged, really unhinged.
Well, I mean, it's also like, if you live in like the Middle East and the Arab states, like, are you like, should those be considered legitimate as well, considering the fact that they also like exist largely because Arabs like left the Arabian Peninsula, went in there, took over, banned their local languages, cultures, religions, traditions, customs, and basically, Arabized and Islamicized them. I mean, I feel like this argument could be applied really across the board. And it's odd that it's only applied to Western countries. I think that Western countries can acknowledge their historical sins and not sugarcoat those things, but it shouldn't be all that defines them. And I think I don't know.
According to them, it's the only thing that defines them. And
it's like I said before. It's like if you're willing to apply these standards to Western countries, but not to the countries in the global South that you venerate, then therefore you are basically saying that those countries have nothing, they don't have any guilt, they don't have any historical guilt that they need to bear
it's
with
so
them.
funny. Like it's only the West that has to have historical guilt. Everyone else is like
Yeah,
perfect.
but I also said, like, I think we have to have historical guilt because we're successful and because we're wealthy, because our countries are wealthy, and so therefore we have to, like, we get told things like, for example, like America is only rich because of slavery. That is actually not true, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
I mean, like,
It's a really misunderstanding of history, of course.
it's a misunderstanding of America's economic history, right? The notion that, for example, the UK is only rich because of like colonization, that's also wrong. Like, the Industrial Revolution, like, made the UK rich, right? Like,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
actual the ingenuity of the people who actually live there and their ability to produce things of value. It doesn't mean that they didn't commit horrible crimes and people died and lost their lives because of it. Yeah, they did, and that's never be forgotten. But like, this idea that like the West owes 100% like permanent, forever, like, guilt to the rest of the world because of its own sins is wrong. And I mean, honestly, like, we need to be more like Saudi Arabia on this issue. Be like, we're just not. No, we're just not gonna do it. We're not gonna do the whole guilt thing.
We just exist. Like,
Yeah,
because
I don't know historical denialism, but like also just like we're not gonna be guilty.
yeah, look, like it's funny when you that whole argument, like, oh, like the West is only rich because of slavery. Like, if you look at it, like, it was actually slavery that was making the South poorer by the end of the institution of slavery. Like
Yeah.
the North had progressed towards the Industrial Revolution and everything. It was actually slavery that was keeping the South poor and backwards. So it's like it's just like such a misunderstanding of like economics, history, politics. It's amazing. Like it's such an alternative. It's such like an alternative way of viewing the world, and like I think a lot of it comes down to like Fanon as well. Like I want to find like some of the Fanon stuff. Like, there's some pretty fucking crazy shit in Fanon. Like, isn't the fear of rape precisely a call for rape? Just as there are faces that just ask to be slapped, couldn't we be speaking of women who just asked to be raped? Like, that's a line in like fucking Fanon, which is supposed to be like, the great decolonial text. And it's just like, like, what the fuck? Like, oh, this was a really good one. Read this, dude. Read this. I'm interested in your take because obviously you're literally African American yourself. Read this, right? It's so funny.
I'm sorry, all of you from Disney. What changed to used to be about Disney in 2017. Starts quoting Fanon at me to try to justify it. Panthers literally fuck off. Or a boy who witnessed his parents and was headline on off. He said he wants on that every French person in the world and his family. French psychiatrist locked him with and as evil as fuck. This is that situation here.
She basically called me racist, and then she called me an imperial racist, and then she said that she was saying to me that what she said. She basically said that, like, she literally said, I should have screenshot this too. She said, Hamas are the new Black Panthers and history will condemn you for not supporting them. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It was amazing. I don't know. Like, what do you think of that whole take?
I just think it's like funny because like it's reflective of just like the craziness. Like, it's unhinged, completely unhinged. So like, I'm not an expert in French Algerian history, but like what I will say is that the notion, like, it's something that it's a comparison that a lot of progressives like to make, where they basically want to compare Israelis to like French Algerians, which is completely inaccurate because like French Algerians actually have a mother country, which is France.
They had
Israelis don't have. Israelis don't have a mother country, right? Like, Israel is the only thing they have. So like, if Israel falls, like, they're screwed. But it's inaccurate. But I also think that like it's actually kind of hilarious in the sense of like, these are people who like live in this sort of like academic bubble fantasy in which these sorts of horrific actions of like violence. It's kind of like the Luigi Mangione thing where like he literally killed someone for like no reason, but like they like you have a lot of these progressives like cheering it on because it's like because of some obscure like far left like ideology in regards to capital and capitalism and things like that. It's the same thing with this. Like, it's, I don't know, like, I find it wild because like you can't like I don't know how you like read something like what that Fanon wrote and think of him as like the hero in that situation.
I know, dude. It's not good.
I yeah, because it's like if someone kills or like you see someone like kill or harm someone that you're related to or you care about, it's okay to like go like respond to that person individually, but to go after everyone of that group because of your anger, that's
it's not
not
good.
justified. Well, it's not justified whatsoever. But like that sort of bloodlust is kind of wild that they are like attributing that to. Well, like that bloodlust is like that they are endorsing that. I come from a group of people that tragically, like African Americans, are responsible for a lot of crime in the United States. I don't think that I would like if one black person killed someone that someone else can like look at me and say because we share the same ethnicity that it's okay to come after me or hurt me or whatever.
Yeah,
but I think that that's kind of like I don't know, like it's just weird.
Israelis and Westerners and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, it's like they hate the West because of like we've touched before because of the amount of power and success that the West has had, and they want to destroy the West to basically they want to destroy capitalism, right? Like that's the whole goal, and they think that destroying Western civilization is necessary in order to accomplish that. But I don't know. I think that like it's kind of like insane. I think that these people are crazy, and I think that this sort of like far left radical thought is funny because these are people who don't like. For example, they'll never do this. Like I said, like they like cosplaying this in their own heads. Like they like the idea of October 7th happening to other people.
Yeah, they don't want to. They don't even want to look at it, dude.
Yeah, they won't. They know that happens. They deny it.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Like they would all cry if they saw blood, and so they just like the fantasy of like fucking killing everyone. This is I got a chat just from Easy Money just then. This literally is live. Happened 3 minutes ago. Hasan declares Israel's a fascist country. It's what our dark past and terrifying future looks like. Fuck off, Hasan. Seriously, just fuck off. Like such an idiot. Just so mentally ill.
Yes, and I just think that like just to transfer 80% of the bag is called. I mean, obviously,
he's basing it off like a Haaretz. He's basing it off like a Haaretz article saying that like 80% of Jewish Israelis don't want Palestinians to live in Gaza. I mean, look, it's in the middle of a horrible war. Like obviously the polling's not necessarily nice, but seriously, like for him to say that, like,
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like with these polls, it's like you have to look at like how they're weighted and how the questions
how they're worded.
Yeah, and so like I can't say I trust it or that I support that, but like I would say that like it surprised me that Reddy's was supported. But I mean at the same time, like I think that like given the fact that Israel is in the middle of a war, has been embroiled in a war for 19 months, that the amount of hate is so high that like, the political realities there have probably pushed people to these extreme lengths. Like I think that's bad.
It's bad. It is bad. Of course it's bad. I was just gonna say though, like in World War II, like if you surveyed like the Americans about their thoughts on like stuff like Hiroshima and stuff like that, like probably the majority of Americans would have had horrible views on this stuff, right? It's in the middle of a horrible war. I don't think it's good. The polling is terrible. I don't think it's good. But for Hasan to just sit there on his high horse and say Israel's a fascist country and Hamas is actually this beautiful resistance organization is just so bullshit.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, like if you ask Hamas or if you ask Gazans, I'm pretty sure a lot of them would want to expel or slaughter the Jews. Like these are two peoples that have been pushed to extreme, ideological, positions. And I'm not saying I endorse it. I don't endorse that poll result. Obviously, I haven't read the entire poll, so I don't even know if it's bullshit or not.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If I were to take it at face value, of course, I don't endorse it. I think it's terrible. But with that said, it's also just the reality of like when you're at war against the people, it's natural that you're going to have negative sentiments, even hatred towards a lot of those peoples. And I think that's
bad. It happens in the war.
It's natural. I think it's bad, but I think that's why we have international laws that exist. As bullshit as international law kind of is sometimes, you kind of do need some of that because of the fact that when you're in war, the civilian population becomes radicalized and pushed to do like inhumane, evil things. So like I think that That's why we have international law. That's, why it's important that the United States is involved with this conflict, so we don't allow Israel to go too far and damage themselves, and also have, the humanitarian concerns of the Gazans in mind, because they do deserve that, just because they're human beings like everyone else.
I agree.
And I think that that's why the international community should be involved in the war and monitoring it and weighing in, as long as it's not, as long as it's completely and totally, above board and fair, which a lot of times it isn't. A lot of times it's complete bullshit. But at the same time, I think that polls results like that are reflective of why it's important that we all understand that. I mean, I support Israel, but like it's also a country filled with human beings who are fallible like everyone else.
Yeah, of course,
so it's important that we acknowledge that when extremism happens and radicalism happens, regardless of where it is, it needs to be like called out, and it needs
and
to
democratic
be,
allies can restrain them, hopefully.
Yeah, and they need to be restrained. Like all countries, especially when you're at war in existential ways, the way that Israel and Gaza are at war, there needs to be like restraint.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Corey, I didn't expect us to speak for 3 hours. I want us to say thank you so much for tuning in, man. Like we actually we agree on like so much. So it's basically us just going like Yas Queen to each other for 3 hours. But,
oh my god, yeah.
It was good though, man. It was really interesting.
Let's do it again. I don't, whenever you want.
Dude, absolutely. Because I basically am trying to like do this thing of live streaming every day, and so I always am in need of new guests and stuff like that, and people to come on, because it's always so much easier to do a stream where you're talking to someone rather than just like talking to just like a blank screen. So I'd love to have you on as a guest again, man. Like
definitely. I'm always free, so just like contact me or whatever. Don't be shy. Like definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I want to do more. Well, because like for me personally, like I want to do more like podcasts, live streams, and things like that. But I've talked about this for a while. I need to do it. I want to start my own kind of like live show or something like that.
Yeah.
So like I think that like just talking more, doing more, like practicing it more, but also like if I'm on other people's shows, that exposes me to a wider audience. So definitely call me up again. I'd love to do it again.
Absolutely, man. And when you start that show, I'd love to go on yours as well. Thank you so much, man. 100%. And when I come to America, we'll have to definitely catch up. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Let me know.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Thanks, man.
Bye.
And thanks to all the viewers as well. Thanks, guys.
Later.
Cool.
Goodbye.
Thanks, man.